What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Between Two Heads. My name is Jameson, Welbourn. As always, joined by my co-host, Addison, DeMoura. And today, we have a very special episode. We're joined by Jay, a.k.a. Professor Sift. Jay, thank you so much for
going on.
Appreciate you coming by.
Of course, man. And thanks for having me.
Hey,
I never really come onto podcasts and stuff, so it's nice to see everybody.
Honored to have you as the first one, and you know, really cool. I know I had seen your face a couple times on some old hash churches, but there really wasn't a lot of info out there, except a lot of good record of a lot of good hash. So I'm really excited to have you on and talk more about your process and you know, all the exciting projects you're working on today. But before we get into that, I want to take it back and learn a little bit more about you. So where'd you grow up?
I'm kind of like an Air Force child. So, I mean, I was born in Spain and I've grown up, everywhere. Kentucky, California, Florida, and Spain, and Texas are the main places I've lived. Wow. But I would say California would be the main place I've lived for the longest, you know, where I could say I absorbed the most from, but absorbed from every place that I've lived in.
So were both your parents in the military, or was just one of them?
Just one. And then my father, and he met my mother in Europe, and that's where the hash god was created.
That's awesome. So you were born in Spain?
Correct. Yeah, on American base. So it was both American and Spanish at the same time.
Very convenient. Cool. Very nice.
Yeah.
So when did you move from Spain? What was your next move?
So when I was probably like 5 or 6, I moved from Spain here to America to like Texas, but and California was back and forth. But I went back to Spain every summer for 2 months. So they wanted me to have my heritage and learn Spanish and be a part of, you know, the family. So I made sure to, like, up until about 16 years old, I was in Spain for about 2 months every year.
That's really cool. I know a lot of people who grew up as military kids sort of struggled with socially and with friend groups because they were constantly moving. Was that the case with you, or not so much?
I mean, I'm a gamer, so I guess I've always grown up gaming. So all my friends and friend groups have been online. I've been fortunate. So wherever I go, I can stay connected with those friends and play wherever I'm at. So I got lucky with that, you know.
That's really cool. So, like, when did gaming become a part of your life? Like, was that a really young?
Really young? Yeah, 6, 5, 4 years old. I mean, you name the first console there was available, and it was at my house. You know, Duck Hunt, the original, you know, anything video game related, Pac-Man. You know, I was very much into games as a child, taking apart computers and televisions and putting them together. I used to work for Dell and Alienware before I became a hash maker.
Oh, wow, man. That's really cool. So did you go to school for that, or was that just a self-taught skill throughout your
No, I went to school for that and mechanical engineering. I was a mechanic for Honda before this, 2 careers, I guess, before this. It was computers and cars.
Wow, that's very cool. So before we get into that, when did cannabis come into the picture? Like, were you introduced to it at an early age? Like, when did you become aware of the plant?
It's so funny. Everyone was smoking when I was, in high school, and I didn't really get into cannabis until about 18, you know. And I was not in California at that point in my life. I was in Kentucky working on cars at Honda, and everybody was smoking out there, and it was swag, you know, with seeds and filled with stuff. And when I came here to visit some family in California, and I picked up some bud, I was just blown away. I was like, this was like a long time ago. I'm 30s now, so this was 18. So this is when it was like, not even 215 barely, you know, really premature amber hash shatter. There wasn't even like good shatter. And seeing all the cannabis there and seeing that really sparked an interest in me. And I came back to Kentucky, and not long after it was like, I can't do this weed. It's just, I can't live here.
Wow. That's really cool. So definitely started later in life than
Yeah, later. I'm a late bloomer when it comes to cannabis, that's for sure.
So once you made that decision to move back from Kentucky, was it I'm leaving my job and I'm getting into the industry, or was it just simply I need to have access to higher quality?
No, I need to have access. I moved here and I managed and ran some Midases, like Midas Touch, So I transitioned from working on cars to managing the cars instead. It pays better and it's less work. And while I was here working that job, then that's how I slowly transitioned into cannabis. Being started getting trim jobs, going up north, the usual. And from then, that's when I really learned about sifting. When I had the trim bins and was collecting these heads and watching these trimmers just throw away all this sift, and people weren't even using trim bins. So I went and bought all the trim bins for all the trimmers on the farm, myself being the worker, and collected all their bins, had all this sift, refined it, cleaned it. Cuban grower and a few people back then really helped me out, figure out what screens to get and things like that.
What year?
And it's 2014, 2015, I would say. Yeah, 2014-ish, right before like the high times craze. When Hash Church and like John B and everyone was on, I was really on Hash Church a lot. And John B and Bubble Man, everyone was sifting, and I was like, all these growers are just throwing their sift away. It was crazy to me. So that's when I really learned to dry sift, and that's kind of where it started. That's where my first extract ever started.
So take me through the progression. What was the next evolutionary step after the trim bin?
Oh, I mean, I would collect the trim bins. Well, I started a tap where I would take parchment and cut it and put it in between the trim bins like a sandwich. So it would kind of create a little bit of static and just kind of pull the heads. And you could just pull the bins right off and literally pour the parchment right into jars. And if you pressed it fresh right off the bat, you would get white sift rosin. If you waited more than 3 to 4 hours, the heads would oxidize and you would get that browner, more like dry sift has just a really short shelf life. If you don't capture it in that few hour period, it goes from white and milky to a little bit yellow and brown. And if we were just pressing it right on a hair strainer, that pink Remington, $25 from Target. It was the best one. 2.5 inches diameter with a little LCD screen.
That is wild. And so you, like in 2015, you're making these observations. Are you like sharing this information with a group of people, or is this just you by yourself making? Like,
no, I mean, it all started with, I think it was like 2014 or 2013 when Soil Grown, maybe it was like the early 15s when Soil Grown at first posted some information about a hair straightener and pressing out weed. And that's when I was all like, I don't need all this expensive equipment and machinery, and I didn't have to buy it. That's why I really didn't get into BHO. I mean, I made BHO, but I never got into it as heavy because of all the equipment costs and the dangers. And I was like, what? I can take a hair straightener that my girlfriend might have and make hash. Let's get the party started.
Yeah.
And then Bubble Man as well, watching him and seeing how he was washing on a boat, washing in a kitchen, I was like, well, I mean, if you really have the material and the effort, you can make hash.
Yeah. I had a chance to chat with my friend Adam at Mission Hill, and he remembered connecting with you fondly in those early days in 2015, and you were doing some dry sifting in your apartment.
Yep.
Were those on Bubble Man's screens, or like
no, those are Pinoco, I think. Pinoco screens. It was something that Cuban grower had recommended me because he was using these Pinoco. I think they're like t-shirt printing company, I'm pretty sure, but they'll make wood ones, steel ones, like any like size you want, any mesh, custom, the LPIs. And I would say he really helped me out and a few others with the LPIs. And then I just put in my first screen order, got a little CoolBot, saw that was what everyone was doing, got an AC, hooked up the CoolBot, the AC, and I would turn my room to 40, 35 degrees when I wanted to dry sift and burn it off because It was Cali. That was cold.
Were you running like first bounce Johnny B style, or like what was your methodology when
Static.
you were
I was
processing?
doing static tech.
Okay.
So I was doing multiple. So I had my multiple screens, I'd have like 3 or 4 screens, but then I'd do my first pass to clean it up. And then the second and third passes were doing the static with the DVD or paint roller with the parchment around it, and then collecting the heads. And then after you collect it with a little brush, then refining and cleaning it. It cut so many hours of cleaning out using the static tech, And I don't know if there's like I know there's other techs that people have, but the static tech for me was the best.
Who showed you that? Was that Hash Church, or where did you
Man, I want to say it was Hash Church that I saw the static tech on. I want to say it might have been John B or one of them who had like a Reservoir Dogs DVD with the fucking with the parchment around it, and they were just going on top, and I could just see the heads just collecting right there, and just taking a little brush, and I was like, holy crap, this is saving me hours. I'm no longer having to pass next screen, pass next screen. I could just take what I wanted and then refine it a little bit more.
And like dry sifting, you weren't limited to cultivars that lent themselves to mechanical separation as much, or was it still you had to be selective on what material you were working with to get the yield?
So dry sift, in my experience, 80% of it, if you're just making it the way I was inferior. You have to do it the way I think Cuban and the others were doing it, where you're literally growing and then hydrating and curing your bud in a room for months at specific temperatures and times in order to sift it to get the best heads, in order to get the same kind of quality you would get from washing. When you're just dry sifting, just random, things that you find, it's good stuff, but it's below quality of washing hash and below quality of like curing bud specifically to dry sift. That's why I went from that to the next level of washing, because I couldn't specifically find, I couldn't spend the time to cure the bud perfectly to get Cuban grower, kind of heads in order to get the perfect dry sift.
Interesting. Okay, yeah. I definitely have questions about that later. But so what was the evolutionary pattern where you got to a certain point where you realized you didn't have the space and means necessary to create the material you needed to properly dry sift, and then you transitioned into water extraction?
Well, dry sift was never you couldn't, it wasn't a large scalable process. Get this blue screen off. It wasn't a large, giant, scalable process as well at that time. So, and I didn't have the means of having that super high quality. And I was already getting pretty picky with my, what I wanted and what I was pressing. And it wasn't what I was getting weren't the results that I wanted. If I wasn't getting the right material at the right time, pressing it right when basically I had to harvest it and sift it myself and press it right then and there to get what I wanted. And that was not really viable back then. And then flower rosin pretty much just took that over, because you could find flour and I could hydrate it myself, even if it was dry, with the Bovita packs, hydrate it to where I needed it to be. And anything yielded back then, because, with heat and flour, things that didn't wash could be made into hash, the gelatos, the hazes, and I think the flower rosin kind of really took off from there.
How long were you playing around with flower rosin until you made the decision to stop?
So flower rosin was from 2015 to maybe 2016, 2017. I saw the death of flower rosin coming, and I was already, so it's kind of funny. Now we press hash and smoke flour, but back then we smoked hash and pressed flour. It was like the opposite, I was always pressing 6-star, and all my friends said I was crazy. I just love pressing hash. You show me the best 6-star melt around, I'll keep a jar or two around to flag it out, but I'll press it all out. I love rosin. But no, I saw the transition, And when I slowly saw that, I slowly just stopped making flower rosin. And since I already was making hash and had it, I just started making hash rosin.
And so did you, like, from when you started making hash rosin, like, were you still drawn to the dry sifting, or was it a complete commitment to hash?
I mean, I stopped dry sifting when I did the flower rosin. That was I knew that I was never going to set up an infrastructure like Cuban Grower and Exotic Genetics in them for dry sifting alone. You know, water flower rosin was my passion then, before before even water hash was. So I completed devoted my time to flower rosin, to applying like more of a scientific method and going, nobody was wanting rosin in the stores. Like, it was denied, denied, denied. It was like being a teenager with pimples in high school, right? Like, nobody, it was just no, 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 no. Nobody wanted solventless. No one cared. And then I came with a motto: is it needs to look like Moxie, like Moxie and Prime. I used to buy it and smoke it. It was $50 a half gram. It was pretty expensive for some shatter. And if you can make your flower rosin look like Moxie and Prime and smell good, then people would want it. And that's when the strawberry banana came into play. That was a strain that nobody could sell in flower. It was not a flower selling strain. It wasn't OG, wasn't Kush. That's what everybody wanted back then, OG. And it was before Runts and Gelato even, really. Gelato was just coming in with the cookies and stuff. That's always been around. But so it was really easy to get access to strawberry banana packs, because I can't sell these. And for me, it was like the holy grail of rosin. It made to this day, you can press it and it tastes like a strawberry milkshake.
So
And
good.
and our tech and the way we did it made it look like, shatter. It looked just like Moxie, with a little envelope, and we did the little parchment and folded and put it in the baggie, and it literally copied Moxie and Prime Oil, but put solventless in it. And that was the only way to get into dispensaries back then, and get yeses, and have Green Wolf and people like that actually take us serious, was to look like BHO but be solventless.
I wonder how many people didn't really know that it was solvent. That didn't make the connection. Because I remember sugar up too.
I mean, people thought it was fake, because they'd be like, are these added terpenes, because it would literally taste like strawberry banana milkshake. It wasn't your popcorn. It didn't taste like what other people's flower rosin would normally taste like, and we learned what made it taste like popcorn when you pressed it. And then we avoided ever doing that. And we learned some strains just don't press well.
Yeah.
Like Tangy. Always tastes fishy when you press it. I don't know why. It just tastes like fish oil.
There's some OGs like that too. If they heat up too much.
Yeah.
So were you cultivating this whole time, or?
Not a small little grow, but I would not call myself a grower up until the last 2 years. I've always been a producer working with growers, but I've never had the time or the space. I don't live in California anymore. Now I live in Humboldt, but middle of nowhere. But living in California, growing wasn't that easy. You really needed to know people but I was a better extractor and I didn't know growing. So I stuck to what I knew best. And then that kind of ran its limits, knowing that as an extractor only, you're kind of the whims at growers, which is really good if you set up good connections. But I kind of wanted more access to what I want to produce and make. So cultivating had to come into play there. And I had to learn to grow.
At what point did the leverage switch for you as a maker in the Cali market, where it wasn't emulating or following Moxie or the other BHO boys? Like, the moments you had, or the selling to places like Headroom Gallery or different places like that.
Man, Headroom Gallery. Oh my God. I mean, that has to be probably that's probably all of us that are the biggest people probably in the industry. Not even big, it's probably the wrong word, just well known. And just started all met. We're all linked. We've all had something going on at the headroom. Banff attractions,
you gotta tell
all
the people. You got to tell the people about the headroom gallery now.
That is like, if people don't know about the headroom gallery, that was probably like, that's even before High Times, before the secret sessions. Like the headroom gallery was like, you walk into a smoke shop and it's like the Sheldon Black smoke shop, and that's all it was at first. It was just like a smoke shop, and then there was a door that was black. You didn't even know you didn't know it was even back there. Someone would open this door and it would lead down this hallway, and it would lead into a whole new like gallery that was just like for seshing and secret events and private. And it was kind of like the if you know back then. Yeah, but I definitely saw, I was doing all the events with Prime and Moxie and them with my Sovin list there, trying to go up toe to toe with them. But I say the fall of BHO came in like, what, 2018, maybe 2019. I saw it kind of going down before, but that like Royal Key, I used to work for them, Royal Key quality, Southern Humboldt concentrate, Diamond Baron, that kind of BHO and those prices, the demand for it was lowering for what I saw, because I was also moving BHO. I loved really high quality BHO, which is really rare to find these days. I mean, let me light one up too.
Yeah, it is rare.
Yeah, it is rare, but those that Royal Key and Southern Humboldt concentrate, they were onto something with their micro diamonds to terpene level. Because I do like the big diamonds, but when you're having an overall better experience on a dab, your dabber tool needs to have a good portion of diamond to terp ratio. And I think that was always a problem with diamonds and sauce. But a lot of good extractors would get those micro, it looks kind of like a galaxy in the jar, these little mini baby teeth. And then when you had a dabber of that, it was just a perfect amount of THC and terps, and you would get flavors that honestly I could never get in hash. The M-Cons and the Malawi Wowie and things like that. But you get lower yields in hash producing those BHOs. And you need very expensive equipment, and it costs a lot to run. So I hope BHO like that comes back. Funny to say me saying that, but I just don't ever think it will.
Yeah, it's a lot of damage has been done, but I still think that there's going to be, for a long time, just like you said, flavor profiles that economically and commercially will only be able to be produced through hydrocarbons, and are still delicious. So it's an interesting time. It's just like, I always find it interesting to ask about when guys like Addison or yourself saw the solventless makers stop following and just start feeling comfortable.
I mean, for me, it's kind of funny. Like a lot of BHO makers have moved into the solventless market, and it's just like it was a lot. I think it's a lot easier now because a lot of the other solventless makers, even before me, paved the way. Got a lot of the work done for us to come in and start selling solventless into the stores and into people. They were already like Hash Church. A lot of people were doing the Matt Rise. That was probably the first ice wax I ever smoked. Before I knew what ice wax was, I was like, what's ice wax? 200 a gram, 73U. Okay, let's try this. It was an experience, and that experience changed my life.
So was that immediately a quest to be able to create or
I didn't smoke. I wasn't really smoking BHO after that. Like I smoked BHO still because back then it was really hard to get hash. But that's when instantly I was like, ice wax, I need it. And no one had it. No dispensaries. A few people had it. And at that point I learned, in order to get good hash, unless you really knew someone, you need to make it. And that's when making hash became kind of my life.
Yeah. What about the glass scene? Were you involved in that in the early days, or
yeah.
Go ahead, rip your dab.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Like all the BHO dudes are watching this and they're like, what the fuck?
Oh, somebody runs some fucking, someone gets some Duavolo chillers, runs some negative 80 BHO, really amazing, really fire, you know, like Royal Key and Southern Humble concentrate. I'd support, you know, but I just haven't seen that kind of BHO in 2 or 3 years.
No, I haven't seen any. And I think it's just kind of, you know, the prices dropped so heavily that why would you do all that work? Because the consumer's not differentiating from one to the other. And then here's solventless, you know, where it's balls hanging out and fucking just going nuts, and everyone's, you know, it's hard to beat. It really is. And now solventless is coming in, you know,
I think
in the 20s, and it's like, you know, but it's definitely not, you know, it's full spec, whatever. But
yeah,
you know,
the
strains you probably
price,
don't want, but
the price of lower grade solventless has come down where it's cheap. I would rather smoke cheaper grade solventless than cheaper grade hash, you know. That's one thing, but I would I would prefer to smoke some really expensive high grade hash like BHO if it was available, you know, like the $100 gram kind of stuff. The same kind of quality that it was on with hash or ice wax. I just haven't seen it in forever.
no.
You know, I used to smoke those, you know, those Royal Keys and those Southern Humble concentrates, that bloody Skittles like it was candy.
I used to smoke the West Coast Cure baller jars, like, you know, what they have of their OG.
Yeah.
Just fucking, I used to murder that
Smoking,
shit. It was so good.
some Skittles. I just took a dab of right now. Some hash rosin Skittles. See, at least now we can make Skittles, you know, in hash, and it like yields. Before we were forced to smoke it in BHO.
Yep. No, it looks good.
So,
but no, glass definitely wasn't the glass scene back then. But I wasn't into like the super expensive pieces. I was fortunate to have people bring me the like $30,000 rigs and, you know, things like that over. I did have Mothership and, you know, Ryan Fitz. I was always like, was really into that like glass scene right off the bat, but always kept it like pretty modest in like my collection, you know, never went too crazy until recently. I started collecting a little bit more of the finer things, you know, and once you start hitting some of the like better functioning pieces, you know, I understand now, you know, like the difference in quality and price and function from your normal, you know, like Mothership and, you know, to like a Yushin or a Contrabasso or something.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, I've seen you. I was going to say you don't have a, you know, you were like, oh, I don't really collect. I'm like, I've seen your glass. Like you have a crazy.
I have three. I mean, I have a Mothership. I have, you know, a Mothership, a Quay Klein, and just the Basso, you know, but like the Mothership egg is just, you know, it's just like, it's so perfect. The daily, you can travel with it. It's clean. It's smooth on the lungs early in the morning. Basso, first thing early in the morning, yeah, you got to go back and lay down, sleep a little bit. I think hits like a shotgun, you know?
That's a nap maker for sure.
Those that's definitely.
That new piece that Mikey got, I've never hit a piece. It's almost like those pieces remind me like you can't cough because it hits so well that it's like regulating the hits. You can't take too much of it. So you're
like
just,
you need to have hits, Well, no, you can. You need to have lung control. It's like a diver. You know, I've done diving and stuff, and it's like a diver. It's like a lot of my friends that come over, they'll hit it, and they're just like ripping it as fast as they can, like the Mothership off the bat. I'm looking, I'm like, he is about to be fucking high. You know, you can't hit it like that. You have to go slow and kind of like work your way up on a Basso because, in my opinion, the function on them they'll mess you up if you just rip them.
Yeah,
you'll get way too much.
They pull your lungs inside out.
Yeah, there's just too much smoke in your lungs, and you can't take it all.
I'm very interested.
It's fun though, but no, you do have. I mean, for you to say, I have a really, you know, a simple glass collection. I have an egg, a Klein, and a Contrabasso.
Yeah,
that's like every
person and a Quave.
Well, I mean, it's like they're the perfect. What I think. They're the perfect functionality things in our industry. It's like they're all three completely different and function extremely high. You know, like the egg is like a Klein is just your original perfect fucking redisculator. The egg is just amazing. There's like no airspace, no lung pull, and then they all three hit different. So it's like three different highs. That's what I love about
You could run any nail set on them. They're gonna function so well that
Yeah, like
you have a
Turf
great platform
Slurper,
for then.
Quaves, the banger, any banger works. And I mean, I use all of them. I use the slanted Quave banger with the OG hover cap. That's for my full melt. You know, that will never die. I always hit up hover cap, letting them know those will never die for full melt. And then the Charmer has kind of took over my life. I mean, I do love the Slurpers, but there's something about the cone, the ball, and the Charmer that just gives me the best dab.
You got me on that. I actually been doing it, and it does shred. I pulled it out because I did it the other day after I left that session
You gotta
at Mikey's.
dial it in. I've had a few people, you know, like trying a few other people that they've gotten them, and they're like, "Bro, you're right." It's like it just retains heat better than a Terp Slurper. A Terp Slurper drops heat. The bottom heat drops too fast, where the bottom heat on a Charmer holds at that 480 to 500 much longer. So you can just take a much longer, lower temp dab without it cooling off.
Yeah. This new control tower.
I'm not gonna lie. Someone smoked me on melt. You can smoke melt off that, and I was very surprised.
This thing, well, it counters what you were talking about, where the rest of it cools down. It has such a long insert
pillar that retains the heat.
Oh man, it grabs the oil. Like it grabs the oil and pulls it in, and it just disperses it up the side. It does so well. Like,
and I was given a full melt on that recently, and it was probably one of the nicer experiences of dabs I've had in a minute.
And yours is like tessellated, right? So it's actually like the cylinder doesn't act like a pump and push the oil, because when they're smooth, the pillars in the middle, they act like pumps and they push the oil up.
Yeah, this pulls it in. And keeps it there with
temperature. It doesn't go down the neck.
Spits it back out.
Yeah.
That's why I like the new Terp Slurper, the Cyclone, whatever one, the little the bosom looking one. Yeah. Well, that kind too. Because it doesn't suck the oil down the neck no matter how hard you try.
Yeah, I can't get it to. You can't get it to come up and go down. Like you could rip the living shit out of it, and it's like.
Which even on a Slurper and a Charmer on 90 degrees some rigs, if you suck too hard, even both those nails will get the oil down the neck.
Well, that's why I like these, because they're just big ass 30s.
Yeah.
Like giant 30s, and you use a cap of it, and it's like you just tilt it forward, and you get everything.
I've been on the 45 ever since I got to the 45 life. I never thought I'd like it, but now I love that 45 life. The 45 degree.
What is
definitely doesn't
that you enjoy?
I mean, it really does suck the oil down a lot less. That I guess that angle that it's at, and it's like I don't know. It's just perfectly it fits with the rig perfectly. I don't have to I can torch it up and set the terp timer underneath. I don't have to config anything. Everything just lines up. But you definitely have to have a good 45 degree banger that has nice grip. Like you get a cheap 45 banger and they're gonna fly out when you go. Oh my god, that was the worst experience. Had one go on my pants and the oil everywhere. But all these, especially the Charmers and the Quaves and the QCBs, Toros, they use really high end tips for theirs, so they never come flying out my rig.
Yeah, 100%. So I wanted to go back to something that you said earlier when you said that you moved away from dry sifting because you didn't have the capacity to cure and handle the material. Like
I wasn't able to make a product sellable, with it.
Like somebody like Cuban that was curing these plants for a really long time. So when you go back to that and to understand that more, like when you say a really long time, are you curing past the point of I
don't know their tech or any of these things. I just kind of have hints and things that we've, heard and talked about the past. I just know that the amount of work and effort that went into curing and refining the bud and the trim, the whole, it's like whole plant before sifting it was a process. It was kind of like how people used to cure their flowers. I don't think anyone does anymore. Everyone just bags and tags it, but when people did cure their flowers, I think it was, something like that, curing your resin specifically for dry sifting. And that, to my understanding, is what they were doing. And I didn't have access to that at that means in my life.
Do you have, or what is your experience with working with cured material versus fresh material in the wash bin? Like, have you?
Well, I mean, that's how it started. It all started. I mean, everything I sold and made, most of the cups that I wouldn't at High Times was all dry material. It was very late into the end when we started working with fresh frozen. It was always washing dry honey banana, dry pounds. You do get better yields because they're dry, but you have to handle it much different because the cannabis is dry. So you get so much more plant material, so much more chlorophyll and green. So you have to be delicate, and it's a lot more work when you're like working with, but and it's not as it doesn't turn into that like complete ice oil look, like it's more granular heads that do coagulate and stick. But since it's dry resin, it depends on the strain. It doesn't get as ice oily as like whole plant fresh frozen does, where it just looks like, like a slick oil in the jar.
Interesting. Have you, in your experience, are there cultivars that you can bring to mind that are 100% without a doubt better cured than they are fresh frozen?
That's about yielding. That's just things that will yield cured, but they won't yield fresh frozen. And that's just like, I'm not a scientist when it comes to cannabis, and it sucks that there's not many of them, But I think there's a water soluble terpene. There's multiple, and we haven't figured out which ones they are. And also, it could be the same strain grown differently, but somebody grew more of the water soluble terpenes and not the other. And you'll wash the same strain and literally yield nothing, but then you'll get a little bit more in the other. You'll see an oil slick in the water, and you instantly know, like, oh man, this is going to be a problem. You see all the terps. So some of those strains like hazes, sativas, anything like that probably does way better dry. But flavor wise, I really can't say things taste better cured or fresh frozen. I mean, I honestly prefer fresh frozen. I think it captures the essence of the plant. I think curing bud is a lot harder to capture the essence perfectly, and then to wash it and to get it, it doesn't transfer the same.
Yeah, and
with fresh frozen, you can kind of choose, right, like when you're smelling the plant, you can choose what terpene profile you want depending on when you pull it, and you're like, I want this, and then freeze it, wash it, and that's kind of what you're gonna get.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment, and I think we as an industry need to understand that there comes a point when quality leaves the equation and it's personal preference, and
definitely
we mix the two together. So I wanted to ask you about fresh press versus cured rosin. In California, there's a tremendous popularity, more than in almost any other market that I've seen, for fresh press. And I just wanted to know what your thoughts were from.
Which is funny because fresh press, I used to be only doing fresh press when I used to be Cali Sifco. That was my first original company. Like all our hash rosin was fresh pressed. But like we've kind of transitioned more into what we call cold cure. Like a few companies like me and like Full Flavor and a few others were starting to do it, starting to notice that, like, whoa, like this is something that we can do to our hash. I call it the flan tech, again, the nice terp layers. But I still think fresh press is a kind of alive, but dead in a way. It's kind of funny that you say that California likes it the most, because I don't really see it offered too much. And when I do, I love it when it's done correctly, but it definitely, the thing it's storing it is the problem. And, people don't, you need to freeze it. You need to dry it frozen. You need to give it to the person frozen. They need to freeze it. They need to sell it to the person frozen. They need to get it to their house frozen. And then they need to take it out and let it sit and come to room temperature, to the same temp as the room, so that it doesn't get moisture in the jar. And then they need to also make sure it's not super hot, and we're leaving it in a car. So there's like a lot of factors that take into play to keep the quality of the fresh press what the hash maker envisioned it, And some people do put in that work. There's like, I can't name them, but there's some people out there that give you ice packs and do every step possible to make sure that you get it fresh. But at the ultimate end, it's up to that person and the consumer if they're going to get their fresh press fresh.
Do you feel that it's going to maintain the presence it has in the market currently, or do you feel that's gonna, you know, wane as either the market sophisticates or the production realizes that the consumer is not that discerning? Or is
I'm hoping it. I actually think it'll come back up a little bit once people like learn like what I call like the proper, like if you look at Kyla and All Greens, they're the only two I can really give as representations for legal hash. That when you look at their rosin, it looks like distillate, you know, it's like complete see-through, no bubbles. Most of fresh press that you see on the market, I'm not saying it's improperly done, but it's improperly done in a way where those bubbles are air. And when you trap air in fresh press, I mean, we all know what air does. It oxidizes your hash, and it just makes your hash turn faster and butter quicker, and possibly burn off terpenes. But when you do the fresh press without getting all those bubbles stuck in it, then the fresh press can stay for like up to weeks in a jar fresh, and then it slowly butters into like that wetness, kind of like how slabs use a sugar. And you can kind of whip it up yourself. Like I have some fresh press that buttered up. Let me see. And then as it buttered up, I whipped it. And it's just, it might be hard to see now, but with the camera, but it's just like super white and super wet. And it was fresh press that was starting to, but if it just depends on the fresh press. And I think it will come back slowly when people start realizing how much work that needs to go into it. But I think cold cure is going to remain stable above it.
In your experience, how many cultivars do you encounter that express better as fresh press than cold cure?
I was just gonna get into that next. That is a good question. So like the honey banana, my favorite strain at the moment, which is funny because the strawberry banana is kind of what brought me into hash, and honey banana has that as a lineage, but tastes nothing like it because I'm really over the strawberry terpene and kind of the banana terpene. But the honey banana is just kind of a honey exotic, high chew flavor. Everyone kind of gets their own profile from it, but it doesn't taste the same as fresh press as it does in cold cure. You get different flavor. It's more fresh, more ripe banana in my experience as fresh press. But when you cure it up, really get these candy notes. Certain strains do change. Certain strains don't. There's some I do think maybe do taste better in fresh press, but I also think that's like preference. But there are strains that I know taste better once they're cured, and it's not preference. I know someone's gonna like it better if I cure it.
Yeah, you get a different expression from it, so it's like something that you recognize that you want to promote, and they're all different, man. They all have so many different.
Like papaya is really a hard one to say because papaya fresh press tastes really good, but sometimes papaya fresh press can miss some of the complexity to the cold cure, where a good papaya cold cure just, man, I have a papaya cold cure curing right now that I'm going to whip that. It's just, oh my God, the smells from it. It smells like bubblegum, papaya, fruit. I'm getting all kinds of crazy notes from it. And I wouldn't get that from the fresh press because it locks in the terps on the fresh press. So doesn't really release them. And also the terpenes do change when they're curing. I don't understand the full science behind it, but I do know that they change to different profiles once they cure up.
They go from larger to smaller, or they go from small, they'll get more complex or simplified.
Some people will argue that it's not curing, but I don't know what the proper term is since we don't have one. I call it, a change in the profile, because you're not curing the heads technically. So, but we just use the word curing because there's not any other word for it. We're not leaving the heads to expose to air and curing it like you would with other hash, with other resin, but you are putting it in a jar, sealing it at, cold temperatures and it's curing in a sense. It's its own cure.
Yeah, it's removing moisture. It's getting to a drier point, and that's.
Oh yeah, it's at first when you first do your first cold cure, you're scared. You're like, what is this? Like, I can't sell this. No one wants dry crumble. You know, like you don't understand what's going on. But then once you figure out the tech and how to get it wet, how to get the right mixture, then you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. You know, I would have never figured this out if you know, one of my jars didn't naturally do it, or if I didn't, you know, get some tips from some people, I would have never like purposely cured a 60, 80 gram jar of hash. That's crazy, you know.
Do you
I
remember
would
when
have
you first did it and what you did it to, or how you learned it?
That Satsuma Orange was one of my favorite strains. A lot of people remember that. It was from they used to get a lot of melt from Emerald Cup concentrates back when they used to do melt. They did the Satsuma Orange, the Pomelo, the Hawachi. Oh, I love that one, and the Durban Sherbet. Oh my God, I cannot believe someone pulled that out. That is the original. That is like that is the first rosin I've ever pressed on a hair straightener. Well, dry sift.
This is
to sell. And that
shout
stuff
out
was
else.
shout out to Great Giant Gross. You know he's out there somewhere. Chop. That was I was working for him, and I was like, we need to press this. I made him take his weed and wash it. I was like, we have to make this into hash. Like, we have to make this into everything. This is amazing. I lost tangent on what I was talking about earlier, but no, that's awesome that you pulled that out, because that is some of the most original. When I just had my little glasses and had my name going, manila envelope.
We were talking about sort of the market trends in Cali and cold cure. Addison,
Oh, so the cold cure, yeah. When I first did my jar was Satsuma Orange. Thank you for that. And that jar kind of did it on its own, you know, where I didn't even know. Like, I have pictures on my Instagram when I go back and look at the jar when I was making some like off Sifco. I think you remember we met up at some events back then when I was doing some off Sifco, and I just left a jar out that was fresh pressed, and the next day it was like kind of already wet buttered. I just took my tool and kind of just whipped it a little bit and was like, whoa, whatever this is. And then I saw Full Flavor Extracts Colby making like larger jars of it, you know, and on purpose, not on accident. And I hit him up, you know, and talked to him, and he did help me. He was, you know, he gave me some tips and told me what I needed to do in order to do a larger batch. And I was like, oh my, I was very scared doing my first batch of it. I wouldn't lie. And I just said full sent it, and, you know, did a big jar of it. And I was very satisfied from that day on. I think cold cure kind of just took into play. It's just, you have to be careful with cold cure, because it does make an amazing product amazing, but it also hides all the subpar product. You can't instantly just tell that it's a shitty product or not a good product, because it can look good. You can make subpar product look good with cold cure. So I think cold cure kind of gets like a somewhat bad rep recently, because a lot of people have been using it kind of like a CRC tech. So, you know, to make their stuff look better than it should. But I mean, at the end of the day, when you taste it, you instantly and smell it, you know that this is not of quality. If it was fresh press, you would have instantly been like, okay, no, I'm not gonna, you know, I don't want to purchase this. So that's one thing it does hide.
Addison, what are you seeing over the last year in the market? Like, are you seeing more groups come forward with cold cure? Are you seeing the same? What are you observing?
I mean, there's two markets. When you look at black market, for a long time, it seemed like it was predominantly all, you know, fresh press. And then, you know, because it was all about heady boy and like keeping shit cold and all these things. And then I think it's just sort of, even on the black market, it converted over to all. I mean, the only time I ever see fresh press now is if it comes from out of state. And it's like the, you know, PNW cats that are coming down and those companies. And it's nice to get. It's always cool. But, and it's like for them, it's more fresh press and melt. And you'll kind of have that flow into Los Angeles that way. On the rec market, everything that 710 sells is fresh press technically, and they do that, you know, non-storefront sales, direct sales model, and they have freezers inside the shops now, like stand-up coolers, like big old Coca-Cola style ones. So It's coming in tier 1 from 710 consistently on the rec market, and then a lot of the guys on the rec market are doing fresh press sales because of the reason is because you're trying to get it to the consumer, and that's like the educated consumer that's buying that stuff. They still sell batter. They probably don't sell as much, but it's kind of like a sort of thing that's died off because what I think you're referring to is, in 2018 to like 2020, there was a everything in the black market, it seemed like, was all fucking fresh press, and everybody was doing fresh press, and everything was being kept cold. And then it just sort of turned into like the 2-gram jar came around. It was whipped it was whipped into batter. Myrons, you're like, oh, what is this? And then the labeling, and now it's like all cold cure, whipped in those tall jars, the Myron jar with the label and all those things. And
it seems to me by listening to you that the legal rec isn't actually going to follow the traditional market. Like the traditional market's moving forward with the 2
I don't think so. Because if you just look now, 710 Labs is now they've done 2 releases of their cold cure, and they're now doing another big drop of their cold cure batter.
Well, they figured out a way to do like a 2-gram jar.
Fresh press dries out too fast. That's like, I love buying like their living soil. That's like the one thing I'll get, the living soil from them. But within 5 to 6 to 7 hours, it just dries out. And then that's the problem with the fresh press is people want it not to dry. And I think Jungle Boys, I was given I was gifted a whole bunch of hash from them recently. It was all cold cure. They're on these amazing boxes and everything. So I honestly, I think people like Allgreens Denver, man, they do some of the best fresh press in the world. I don't want them to do cold cure. I want them to stick to their fresh press. But I think a lot of people here will start to catch on to do the fresh press because it's easier for them to manipulate, to get to the consumer. Cold cure, sorry. The cold cure. I think fresh press will still be around, but I think cold cure is starting to catch on in the rec market a lot more recently. Just because I've been seeing it with people.
Well, 710 figured out a way. I think there's a loophole, and they're able to do it because they sell it as an edible, maybe, or something fucking crazy. But they can do it.
Well, you have to have a medical card in order to get the 2-gram jar.
That's what it is.
Yeah. So in order to get the 2-gram jar, but a med card is literally 5 minutes on your phone and $10, $15, and there you go.
I've had my med card since.
I had my med card since I moved to Cali. So it's like if you don't, so if you don't have your med card, you're missing out on some easy stuff.
Plus, too, if you have your med card,
I keep the home press right at here, just so I can. Sometimes I'll run to the shop and pick some melt up or pick up some flour and just test press it out and just to see how it is.
Yep. Yeah, if you have your med card, I think you have better chances of winning in court too. So it's good to have your
you
med
can
card
have your
anyway.
plant, and it's like have my have a reason to have these things.
Yep. That's good.
But it's funny that you say the Myron jars, because we were doing those when we were putting we were putting flower rosin in the Myron jars. We saw Royal Key and we saw Southern Humble. We saw all the high-end BHO companies using them, and I was making all these posts about people using the like old school jars, and like all your terps would get stuck in the lid, and I'd get so upset. And hash would also just dry out. There's too much headspace, there's too much air and oxidation and light. And when those Marons came out, I think they also really changed it up for hash in general for a lot of people, because they're able to put a product into a jar that stays good for a lot longer of a time with a good seal. Because Myron they have like a patent. They have like airtight, smell tight. There is, it's made for makeup and high-end industry. So like those things are, they're really good seals.
Yeah, no, they're quality jars, man.
That changed the hash for a lot of people.
A lot of people think they're black, but they're just blue.
It's ultraviolet. They're if you put a light to them, they have like a patent for that specific mixture of glass. It's like a purple. It's actually a purple color if you put a UV or a deep light to it.
It does protect stuff too. I mean, especially BHO.
Well,
But
it also
they
lets
have,
in certain, spectrums of light, because it's like it lets in certain UV light and then blocks everything else out.
yeah, they've come back pretty hard. They're kind of, it's more of a standard now in the black market for those jars at this point. Except for Tito. Tito's a holdout.
Yeah, Tito's
I mean,
along
it just they just keep your product, like for fresh press. I still like using, your like e-bottles, like your good traditional, like I still, because I want people to see my hard work and it looks beautiful and white. And, I don't like it just looks like a black slick oil when you put it in a Myron jar. So I'll sacrifice
it's a
a little
viewing
bit.
window. Like the
But if
others
you, but the e-bottle jars, they give you like PTFE insert options and all these high-end options. So they close perfectly. If your fresh press spills, like I had it earlier, had my shit spill, I could literally just take my jar and take it right off the insert because it's PTFE. You won't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
So if you use the proper glass jars, still work nice. But you were right, Myron really changed the scene for everything. They kind of set the scene.
100%.
Trap boys for sure.
I want to ask you about rosin versus melt. Hearing you talk earlier and saying, sounds like, I know where your preferences lie, but do you feel that there is a medicinal or like a terp difference that are going with the with melt?
Can you still see me there? There we go.
Yeah, we got
it cut out for a second. So like, I mean, I used to be a hardcore melt smoker, like queso, glass, and I had a whole bunch of people back in the day. We used to really be into the glass presses. We had all these really dope glass presses with cool domes and tops and fumes. I take them to events and give them some people, and we would, heat them up and press out and flag out our hash. And that's kind of how I always smoked my hash. And the high and the flavor is a little bit sometimes different. You do get different, but what it is you can't combust full melt at nowhere near the temperatures that you combust rosin. And you can get way better flavors off rosin at the higher combustible temperatures. And with full melt, there is no forgiveness. You go just a little too warm and it's bad. It does not taste good. Bad experience. You go a little too low, it tastes good, but you're not getting high. And I don't get the bang that I want really. Or with rosin, I could definitely go like at 500 or something on my banger, or 520, and not burn, still what I call low temp, get a good profile, and also get a lot of like THC high from it. That's like the reason why I don't smoke melt. It's just because I can combust it hotter. If not, I would, I dab melt here and there. I have a bunch of like Starburst OG and some things from like Humboldt Organic, and I'll smoke that as a little like thing here and there. But overall, when I want to take a nice big fat dab, it's some rosin.
Have you encountered unique varietals of melt that can withhold a lot higher temperatures than others?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's these certain melts that are just like THC bomb. We just did that one recently. That makes amazing melt. GMO, cookies and cream. There's definitely certain strains like strawberry banana. There's like certain strains that are a lot more forgiving and can like be dabbed. Even some Skittles have done really well. Can dab a little bit okay, like hotter, and you'll be all right. But most Skittles, you dab it too hot and it's just ruined. It's just horrible. Even on the rosin, it's just horrible.
Yeah.
But there's a few cultivars that do hold up their resin really strong and melt. It's a few, but not many. That like, it's because I haven't tried many melt too recently.
Yeah. Do you find that those fruitier strains tend to correlate one way or another compared to the more gassy or funkier strains?
It's like we've been trying to get sherbets and gelatos and stuff to correlate, and we get lucky sometimes, and we'll release it. We'll release a good sherbet or something when I find that the flavor kind of matches. But those strains do not translate. It's like the best way to describe it is like when it rains on concrete and at that fresh concrete rain smell. That's what you really get off a lot of those strains when you wash them for some reason. Like the terps of the cookies and the dough and the cherry pie just don't come through on those. But on like the fruits and a lot of those other crosses, yeah, they translate pretty much exactly how they smell. The honey banana, the papaya. We've been trying to get, like we're working on cheeses, OGs, sours. We're trying to, we're experimenting on a lot of things and trying to get that flavor to come out in the hash. Even if the yield's okay, like 2-3%, we're not worried. We just want the flavor to translate where it smells like the plant. It doesn't taste kind of like planty and just different.
Yeah, 100%. I wanted to ask you about resin mixing and blending. Be it pre-wash or post-wash. Is that something that you're a proponent?
Yeah, so I've done way too much experimenting with that, and I do not like I don't like mixing in the wash. We have learned that is just such a loss. There's just something about the science of mixing two strains that do not produce the same yield that you would think math should do. Doing your averages and your this and your that, like you take half of this strain or half of this with 20 of this and 30 of that, you always end up with like a lower yield than what you will expect that you're going to get. And if you wash them separately, your yield's better. And I don't understand, maybe if it's the terpenes from that strain breaking down the other, so then I need to calculate the loss of that as well. I don't, there's like some kind of math I'm probably not calculating well, but we've noticed that washing strains individually for us have been better. And then what I like to do, it's kind of like I learned it from the BHO guys. They blast it separately, find their mixtures. We like mix it all together by, gram by gram, and we'll dab each one. And we'll see which one is the best blend, 70-30, the 60-60, the 50-50. And then that's the blend that will homogenize and melt together before we press it. Because and then we cure it together, so it homogenizes once more once it gets whipped.
Do you feel that there's a scientific difference by combining that loose resin in the bag before you press it through the press versus pressing those two individual bags of loose resin separately and then mixing the subsequent cold cures?
I don't know. I think you get the same kind of concept I think if you homogenize the cold cures good enough. But here's the problem with homogenizing two different cold cures. You have different colors. And with different colors, you start to get swirls and different things that happen with the rosin. And you get different textures. And if you homogenize it together, you get a better overall quality in the texture, I think. I think mixing two different strains, once they're cold cure, I don't like the way it looks, I don't think it's a flavor wise, but look wise, I don't like the way, it changes. But that's why I like to press it. And then as fresh press, you're getting uneven amounts. It's not, you can't say that like every dab tastes the same when you leave it as fresh press when you're mixing, unless you homogenize the melt really, really well, which is hard to do unless you have like a nice marble spoon and a freezer, which that's what, we used to like package melt. So we still have like our marble spoon and our little freezer and stuff. Sharing all my secrets here. No, like, I like pressing it, like the mixtures and then cold curing them together versus separating them and mixing them. I don't think it makes a good color and texture, and I don't like swirls in my product.
So in your experience, are you able to notice any consistent differences between salt grown and organically grown resin?
I mean, honestly, I can, like, most of the stuff I taste these days, I can taste what we call the indoor effect, where like, we're just, it's like, and it's not to talk bad about it or anything. I could just taste a difference in the quality, like the salt, like I can taste the, I think when you start to smoke a lot of hash, I think before I couldn't notice it. When I smoke a lot of soil, and even cocoa is good, the soil, the cocoa, just things more organically. I just noticed for me tastes better on my palate, like on the aftertaste, and they're like cleaner on my throat, versus like the more salt things that are grown from more flour, like heavier on the nutrients and the heavier on the feeding styles. For me, I can taste the difference, and they're not as pleasant to smoke. I'll dab 1 or 2 dabs and just be like, yeah, I'm gonna set that aside. I'm more of a outdoor, like I think outdoor resin and sun grown and lighthouse depth controlled makes some of the best hash in the world. And then I would say after that, or even not even the best, I would say the same could be said for LED and indoor, because I run LED indoor, outdoor, and light depth. We run, and we just put each strain where we think it tastes the best. Because I don't think anything is better than the other. Like I don't think indoor is better than outdoor, and I don't think I think it's all about what strain gets put in where. Like Skittles is a little bit better indoor, and Honey Banana is a little bit better outdoor, and GMO is better outdoor. It's just, but it's also preference too on some people's taste on what they're trying to capture.
I want to talk about the Honey Banana. You just dropped some S1s of it. I think if I'm not...
Yeah, we haven't done like a full release of the official seeds yet. We're going to be dropping like a real drop like online and all, But yeah, we self the Honey Banana. I just love that strain. I smoke probably a jar of Honey Banana a day, and it's like, it's not even just the flavor. It's like, it's the medicinal, for me, it's the medicinal effects. Like for like the Amarillo peel that we just did, and like the Honey Banana, like, and Skittles is good as well. But I would say Honey Banana and Amarillo peel, they're like medicine. They keep me motivated, going, happy, high. They're just good. And it's probably why I probably smoke a jar of that a day. But yeah, the Honey Banana has been one of my favorites. I'm glad it was brought, to my attention in California, because I didn't discover it, but I'm glad that I was able to, be able to get my hands on it and play with it. And yeah, we finally crossed it to itself, and then crossed it with all my favorite stuff to smoke, like papaya, trop cherry, Taliman, Gelinade, and the Rainbow Belts.
What kind of yields are you seeing from her?
We get, like 5+% on the Honey Banana. We've like, the highest I've ever gotten was like a 7 to 8%, but you really have to be growing super small batch and dialing in really perfect to get that like 7 to 8s. Not a lot of genetics hit 8%, but there are a few genetics, and some I can't name because they're proprietary, that do hit like 8%, and you're 8.2%. It's like been the max that we've really hit on something. And we're like, wow, and then when you translate it into rosin, that's about like, a good one will do about 6.7, close, like a good melt will translate, like you'll lose 1%, maybe 2, if 2 is bad, but you'll lose like about 1%, or maybe like 0.5% if it's really good melt, or every bag or every part of it is melting, like 95, 98%.
Yeah.
But the honey normally does like 5-6%, and then it'll press like high 4s and 5s easily,
Wow. So
and it also grows very well. It's one of those ones that you're not gonna expect, and then you're like, oh my god, I can't walk through the room. It kind of grows like a sativa, like it's super like stringy looking. It's everywhere. It's all in your aisles and stuff, but it makes your whole room, everywhere, everything just smells like Honey Banana, like a tropical, a tropical forest of honey bananas when you're walking through it. It puts a smile on anyone's face.
That's awesome.
So what's your favorite of the new crosses that you've done for hash?
I don't know. Everyone's gonna have their preference. I really love trop cherry, so I think the honey cherry is one of like my favorites, because it just has that like the honey and the cherry. But I've just smoked a lot of papaya, but honey papaya is fire. The honey belts is fire. I think gonna have to just keep on hunting out some more, and finding like the perfect one that we like. But the trop cherry and the belts, and the straight honey. Those are definitely my favorite.
Nice.
I haven't done the honey gelinade yet. That's the only one I haven't really done, so I don't know how that one's going to come out.
I wonder.
Yeah, that one's going to be. We didn't have that much of that one, so we just had to run it.
Where do you think the plant maxes out, Jay? Like everybody's breeding for solventless, and everybody's claiming crazy numbers. Like how far do you think the plant can be pushed as far as yields go?
I know it's great. I know people always tell me these numbers, but then when I go wash these plants, I'm like, I'm not seeing these numbers. Unless they mean like, and when a lot of these numbers that I talk about are like without including the food grade. And what I would include, our food grade is like still sellable as like tier 2 and 3. We just don't want to make a tier 2 and 3 product. We just never have. We've always just wanted to make tier 1 and that's it, and just keep on focusing on that. And the tier 2 and 3 get stacked up until we make edibles, which we were starting to do, and rosin carts, and which we end up having so much tier 1 that most of the rosin carts end up tier 1 and tier 2 mix. But yeah, I think with the hash. Sorry, I lost my question there. What were you saying?
Sorry, I was asking about the
Too high from that last stab that Amarillo.
Yeah, and I just took a dab. We were talking about the salt grown versus the organic grown, and then
the yields. Here we go. Yeah, the yields. So I think the yields max out, honestly. Like, so you're gonna see on average, like on a good day, like 4 to 5%. That's amazing. Like you're averaging between 2 to 3% on most, like strains that don't really yield well but taste like papayas don't do more than 3 to 4%. In rosin, that's if you're getting 4+% on papaya, you're a really amazing grower. You've got a really good cut. But I haven't seen papaya do 5% in rosin. I just haven't seen it. It's very the lower ends of the papaya and the higher ends of the papaya are really fluffy. They don't press out very high. So it's just like certain strains don't press out good in the highers and lowers, and they only really juice in the middle. And so people might say a really high yield on the wash because it's filled with stalks and things that aren't going to juice. But when you go press it out, you might not be getting anywhere near close to that yield. So it really depends on the yield of the press. I normally don't see 5 and 6% yields on rosin unless it's something crazy like GMO, which anyone can grow GMO and get 5-6%. That's like, cookies and cream. But the honey banana is one of those strains where it hits the flavor, but also hits that 5-6%.
Yes.
Where do you think the plant has the genetic potential to go, or have we reached it?
No, if you convert 8% plus to dry material, that's like almost 40% of the plant. Yeah. So I think that's the max. Like, in my opinion, I've never seen higher than that, especially without including like food grade, but even with including the food grade, like 9%, which is like converted to dry, I think it's like 43% of the biomass. So if you had a pound, that means 43% of that pound dry was just resin. That's the best you can ever get. It's the best I've ever seen, but that is very rarely growers can achieve that. I've seen people who do KNF and, really small, batch growing, produce that 40, 50, not 50, but that 40% resin to biomass. I think that's the max I've seen and that you can get. If anyone does more than that, I will be amazed. Let's call up. Let's start up, yeah. But I think on average, what you're seeing is 20 to 30%, and that's pretty high. But 20, it's to dry material and fresh rosin that equals to between your 3 to 5s. But to biomass to the plant, the most you're really getting is 20 to 30%. Some people are getting between 15 to 20, and some people are getting 20 to 30% from biomass to resin conversion.
Yeah. You mentioned rosin pods. You strike me as a guy that does a lot of R&D. I know everybody is trying to find the best systems and the best way to prepare their material to go into these pods. What have you learned, and what can you share about?
We dropped rosin pods back in 2017, 16 I have a whole bunch of pictures. I've just never sold them because I've never they have never been to my standard, the technology, the pod, the experience. But the problem with it is always the C-cell. So even though the C-cell is a far superior product, they taste better. They need to be screwed on, and they need to be put on a pen. And you 100% lose the factor of taking who carries, like, do you see anyone carrying around a stick anymore with a C-cell pen, you know, like a vape? It's like, you can't fit in your pocket. You can't sit on it. Someone might buy it, screw it on, hit it, set it down, but then forget about it or leave it. It's no longer a pod that you can just hit and put in your pocket and go on the go. So it was something I never really even cared about making. I just stuck to the you know, high quality hash. And then the pods came around and we started doing the eye crushers, you know, which everyone does right now. And, you know, I've tried talking to them about lowering the temperatures and the volts and stuff. I don't really think they're carry too much because their business is booming about it. But like they burn too hot. After you get 2, 3, 4 hits, you know, in my experience, and you have to first prime them. The first 2 hits kind of suck anyways, because rosin is something that you need to prime in a cart. It always will be. No matter how good the technology is, the rosin will not settle really into it because of how viscous the product is. So you kind of have to like prime it a little bit before you get your good hits coming out. But then they just start to burn and everything just starts to taste kind of too bad, you know? And that's why I didn't want to release the pods. I just said, I'll wait. And then we did these new ones recently that we've that have a C cell inside, but they're a plastic hemp, and they're disposable and they recharge. That's the also downside to the eye crushers is a lot of them died before people even got to finish them, and there goes a waste of a whole fucking, you know, pod. So these ones are rechargeable and they hit
the hemp ones are sick.
They hit much smoother. They're clean. You know, they like you forget you're even hitting it as you're hitting it. You know, it's if you want a dab, a good terp taste, this is not what that is. You know, this is get you high on the go, not be distillate, and still be rosin and taste somewhat good. But it's always going to mute where the flavor, whatever you think you're going to get a muted flavor of it. I mean, it's a science. You can't put rosin into a pod and expect it to taste like a dab. It's just not going to happen, you know?
No.
So that's why I was waiting for the market to kind of establish itself so people didn't get like let down, didn't see like Skittles or strawberry and be like, oh my God. I will say the honey banana does taste pretty honey. It's one of the cards, like strawberry, banana, honey, and banana OG are like the 3 ones that when you hit it, you're like, oh shit, banana, you know, like honey, like, oh, that tastes really good. But most of the carts kind of taste okay to what you think they're going to taste like. They're way better than anything out there. Like the one that I have, I've was testing it, you know, hitting it in and out, doing all my routes, driving around, and I was like, damn, this thing is getting me high. It's smooth, and if I can use it, then it's something that I can put my name on.
Yeah. No, I know the ones that you're talking about, and they actually have. What's cool about those is they oscillate between 2 different ohm settings. So that's from AVD, and it's the disposable, the small little hemp disposable, and it oscillates between those temperatures, so it doesn't overheat. It's really nice.
Yeah, I've noticed the oil hasn't gotten hot, and I've done a few big draws and then tried to see if it will like start to taste like if I'll get the coil taste. And that's the thing is you get the coil taste, and that's one thing. I don't want people to taste
too hot
the coil when they're hitting the thing.
That one doesn't get that hot. Like it goes, I think it's like 1.8 to 2.4.
And then they're rechargeable as well, which is nice. You know, they're sleek. They have like a tip so that the air spins as it comes up. And they're definitely a much smoother experience. I'll finally release a pod because I think it's worthy of putting it in.
Very cool.
Those are definitely worth getting. And it was the company's owned by a grower that lived in Mendo and then moved up to Washington.
Yeah, they're really nice people. They've always been like always sent us samples, and like Jelly Wizard, I think you guys probably know of him. He's always put me onto them and that company. I used to do the C cells and do them for personal, and I'd always make rosin carts, but only to sell them to friends and people close by because it was nothing I wanted to package and do. But once this came out and I tested them and did them and said, wow, this is something that like I took with me the other day because I was like, oh shit, I need something on the go. Don't want to hit the peak. Don't want to hit this other thing. But this pod was good enough. And I usually will never hit a pod. But this one was good. So, You know,
Yeah, AVD makes some great products.
I'm hoping that people start designing things more for the rosin pod market. Like, I don't think this was designed, for BHO, obviously, but I'm hoping soon enough that someone will come out and like design a product for rosin, like work with the actual viscosity of the product, make some kind of different openings, some kind of different like settings, and like, maybe don't have to prime it as much, or a different kind of loading method. Like, there's just, honestly, we're all just repurposing BHO product at this moment. But I've tried reaching out to, obviously it's always China and Alibaba and speaking to them on WhatsApp, but I mean, none of them are really interested because their business is good, but no one's like thought about actually making a product for the rosin people. And for how big rosin is right now, I'm kind of surprised that like someone like AVD or someone big hasn't reached out and contracted somebody to start making them a rosin specific solventless, cart.
Well, I think AVD does. That's why they do the oscillation.
And that's probably why it's the best one. Yeah. I think him and Jelly Wizard, I think, lowered the temp. I think, remember correctly.
Yeah, he's actually a really cool ass cat. Like he takes dabs. He's a smart dude. He has a really good team of people that he works with, and I know that they did design a lot of stuff for solventless because they saw that it was overheating it, and they wanted it to taste better. They wanted to be able to deliver something. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad they did because it's definitely a product that I can now safely, want to put out with my name on it and know that people are going to be happy when they experience it. And it's like, I love hash and I just want to smoke hash, Yeah. So I know that when people smoke my hash or smoke something that I make, I want them to be happy. I know they're probably like me. They really like it. They smoke hash. And if they're sad, I don't want them to be sad.
No, I want to be happy. On the go.
No, it's ripe for innovation. Like the vape industry hasn't seen a lot of innovation in a long time, and figuring out whether it's creating two sort of holding ports so that the rosin isn't as exposed to the heating element or whatever it is. I think that there's going to be a lot of innovation in that space, and it's very cool that
being able to. I want someone to make something that also can be like safely stored away in the fridge, because with these pods, one thing is we make them all fresh to order because they're shelf life. They're like we store them as cold as we can, but I haven't tested these with the battery, but putting these in the fridge will probably eat the battery life, because the cold. But we haven't tested like with the batteries and the moisture. But the good thing about the separate pods, like from 710 Labs, they do leak a little bit, but the good thing is you can put those in the fridge and you're able to store them for a lot longer, and the shelf life is a lot longer. That's the one thing with the pods is the shelf life on them. For me, it's like, I don't know what it is specifically, but I do know after a few weeks, they start to change. It's just like any other hash or product with oxidization and, heat and temperature. They're going to start to convert and get dark and not taste so good.
Interesting. No, I think those are good points. I want to switch gears a little bit and ask you about your lab and how you wash, like what your personal setup looks like. Are you utilizing any machinery at this point, or are you all hand by hand?
No, I mean, you always see me. I always post a paddle, and it's not like I'm against machines. We've tested machines. I don't like washing with bags, so the Icon wasn't for me, and I just didn't like the way I don't really like what we call propeller and impeller style systems. The Bubble Man machine, and that's how I started. I used to use a Bubble Man machine with a fan speed controller. You could hook it up to a fan speed controller, and you could slow down how fast it was going, and you could really wash really slow. And that was like the tech for a while. But no, I hand wash. We use just the paddle and just good old hand washing, good old kayaking techniques. And I don't think we've done test by test, like side by side, exact same strain, same material, same amount of time, with the same kind of amount of force to see what happens. So what I've noticed is from like using a Bubble Man, this isn't from using the other machines, so I haven't used them yet. I can't tell if they do that. I don't know if they do. They probably don't. Is you get the same yield, but you get different yields in bags. As in with hand washing, you'll get a higher range in the higher bags, like the 150, the 160, the 90, the 70. But with the machine washing, you get the same yield, but you get a larger range in the lower bags, the 90, the 70, the 45. And I don't know if that's because the heads are being polished or washed down and being broke because of the centripetal force, and they're just getting smaller. So the nice juicy heads are falling down to your lower bags. Where I don't like the lower stuff, I don't like put in my rosin. We do only the higher end stuff. So that's where we went to hand washing only, because we could get much higher quality first batch rosin versus having all that fall into the bottom.
That's a super interesting observation. Are you a proponent of Frenchie's cyclone tech, where creating that cyclone or that movement in the waters and the suction that comes with it is what's going to separate the gland? Or are you more a proponent of the shift in the water is actually what moves the gland off the stalk?
I mean, by doing tests of washing and hand washing, it's I mean, the centripetal force does do well, but you got to remember the centripetal force also has a lot of G, so you're also pulling off a lot more plant material. Like, I love Frenchie's stuff, but his stuff is a lot more traditionally like darker, and it has a lot more color. And I think when you have too much force, you're not just taking that. That's why I used to use a speed controller. Like, there's some newer machines out there that you can really dial in how it does, and where you can have it do kind of like a hand wash where it goes back and forth and back or forward, where you can have it do. And I think those machines will probably do well. I don't think it's about the centripetal force as much as just breaking the head off the stock. If it wasn't, I think he doesn't like to do a lot of freezing, so he needs more centripetal force to be able to remove that head off that gland. And it's greasier, but when you're ice brittle cold, just I believe just like a Swift good, paddles, just dunking it in there, you can start to see all the heads already break off. Well, that's how I normally know how good it's going to yield, just by having it do the pre-soak and seeing like how much heads are already floating around, and then just paddling, because we're doing a centripetal force, but instead of doing it vertically, when you're paddling, it's just like in water, you're doing it this way. So you're spinning the water in a ball this way instead of this way. There's even washing machines now that spin this way, instead of this way. And it's just a different way of spinning. It's at the end of the day, it's the same exact method. You're just doing it in a different way.
Interesting. No, I think that's a fair assessment. So, I mean, would it be fair to say that you would feel that there's a level of quality that can be attained in hand washing that cannot be attained in machine washing?
That's a hard one to say, I think at the end of the day, if you have a really good machine and you dial in your techniques and you have the batch size proportion to the machine size, and everything is working correctly, because you have diminishing returns. If you have too much material in a machine, you're not actually you're washing more of the biomass than the material. And if you have too little of material in a machine, then you're just going to be beating it up. So you need to have like the perfect amount of material to the machine. I mean, same thing with the wash too. So, but with the wash, a lot less forgiving, because you can go with smaller sizes, a lot less variables. I think a lot less variables have to be played with hand washing, so you can produce a much higher quality product with less math and work and effort. But I think machine washing can produce as good as stuff if done just as well.
All right. I think I would tend to agree with that. I think that I think you've got a lot more variables to deal with when you've got a machine. So I think there's a really fair assessment.
I don't think I can't say yes or no if one is better. But I can say that one has more variables than the other, and one's easier to dial in than the other to produce. Like, if you want to just make some full melt and you don't want to press it, hand washing is going to be the way. if you're making a lot of cold cure and a lot of things like that, and you're not even worried about your micron mixing and things like that, then machine washing is going to be your way, you know? So it also depends on what you're doing and what you're aiming, you know, like we like to separate all our bags and everything, you know, and we like to, and if something comes out as good for melt, like, oh shit, you know, maybe we'll do some melt, you know, but we like to have that option. With a machine, I kind of would take the option away of like maybe being able to do melt, you know, because you will beat up a little bit more in those higher, and you won't get that, you can't get that first wash pass small pool, which is how you would get for full melt.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. I want
think so.
to ask you about like large scale dry sifting as somebody with a tremendous amount of experience in the space, more than most, because a lot of people who
Cuban I think would be the most in that by far. I think he'd be the only one that could answer the dry, like large scale dry sifting.
have you put any thought into it? Like, do you think
Cuban, I mean, well, Jungle Boys has done it before. If you know, Jungle Boys used to do all the dry sift rosin. If you remember at Addison, like it was a big thing. But if you saw, they couldn't keep their coins from going brown, you know, and everyone would just trash them for a while, and it kind of hurt their full melt Sobelness brand, I think. And they're back on top, but that dry sift rosin just wasn't it, you know. And like, I think there's a way for it, but honestly, because of whole plant fresh rosin, just wash, you know, like unless you're trimming dry bud and then you have all that trim, you can tumble it and refine it. But the problem is if you do not get the sift and the stuff perfect and cured right at that first hours, so you really can't cure the trim. You have to wet trim. No one wet trims, you know. So I don't think mass producing dry sift is going to ever really be a thing. I mean, prove me wrong maybe, but I don't think it'll ever be a thing. And it also burns way too easy. Like you don't dab dry sift good because it's 99.9% resin glands, you know, and it's doesn't have that like cured, you know, like cubicle from like when you're washing. It really is just like, you know, exposed to air and everything. I think it has a shorter shelf life. It is fire. It's amazing. That little package was 99, you know, sift. I think it's some of the most unique, and everyone should try it once in their life. But I don't think it's something that you're going to see mass produced. It'd have to be like, you have to grow for it specifically, cure for it specifically, and make some kind of like static tech. Like before I got into flower rosin, I was like, how can I do this better? And we were sitting down with like, you know, literally with like going online and trying to get like 2 plates and making static balloons and just I was like, if I can make a machine that you could change the voltage, you know, like a medical machine, and you can change the voltage of how much energy you're putting in. You can change like how much static you're getting. Because you get too much static and you're getting stocks and everything, and you have to find just the right amount of static just to get the heads, you know. And I don't know if people doing like vibration techs and stuff, but I just don't think anyone ever really dialed it in because you don't really see any mass produce dry sift anymore. Yeah, I think Cuban Grower is the only ones putting out, you know, still fire ass dry sift.
Yeah, I think it fits in with all of the new, you know, it doesn't fit into a large scale or a scaled up model because you're not going to sell as much of it because not as many people are on it, but you can build a demand for it by doing drops of really small amounts of it, and then including that now into the new model of like, you know, with like I was going to ask you about it and kind of talk about it, like your marketing and how you got into the anime stuff and how you got into that art side, because you do these drops with the mood mats and you've got all the different colored ones, and I see people collect them, and you know, so I mean, like that was going to be like another question. So
I'm a huge nerd. Like if people haven't figured that out by now, you know, like in school we used to get made fun of, and now we're like the cool kids. Now you got like people Hypeland and stuff dropping Dragon Ball Z. People back in the day used to if I wore this to high school, I'd get made fun of, and now it's like, oh man, that's dope, you know. So it's kind of funny to see the transition in the culture. And I mean, I've always had like Dragon Ball and anime as my profile, but I've never branded my brand under anime. You know, it was under Cali Sifco. It was more traditional. And a friend of mine was like, why don't you brand yourself, do your anime and your stuff? And I was like, nah, man, it's nerd stuff, like I like that stuff, no one likes that. But apparently, no, apparently a lot of people love anime and of things and mangas. Like I have a collection of mangas, Gundams, I have all that stuff, really into that culture. So I just started, I guess, putting like my culture, what I really like, into my hash, what I really like, and I guess it worked out really well, and it's all natural, It's like I sit and watch anime all the time, do it when I'm pressing, so like I got the vibes going into the hash with the anime.
And can you talk about your friendship and relationship with Law Comedy?
Yeah, it's I mean, he's a good friend. I've known him, before we were even like brands, when we were just guys going together to events, and pressing hash on hair straighteners and doing things together. And we just been friends, and we just hanging out one day, and I needed to transition a logo. I was using Master Roshi and Toei Animation. They sent me a letter, and I love them, so I wasn't going to go against their wishes, and they asked me to stop using the Master Roshi logo on my jars. And I was right, I was just using their stuff. So it was about time that I made my own art and imaging, and that's when a good friend of mine, Lot, really pushed me, Mike, as you know him, really pushed me to start doing merch and help me create this image that we created, the cloud and the paddle. Because like he used to laugh. I used to come to his house, and I'd, just to come hang out, and I'd pop my trunk to like unload my bag, and there's a paddle in the trunk, or there's a paddle in the back seat. You just laugh. You're like, dude, you just drive around with a paddle? I was like, dude, you don't know where you're going, man. Like you'll roll up to a place, or you'll get a call, and someone says they got some material. I can go find a trash can and some ice and test that shit right then and there to see if it washes, So he laughed, and we just turned that that paddle kind of into an image, and the Nimbus was just, I loved the clouds, and we got high and kind of fit really perfect with the paddle and the Nimbus, and it became a whole thing. And lost my good friend. I don't think I would have done merch or anything if it wasn't, for like a good friend pushing me to do it.
Yeah, he has that effect on people where he kind of
You executed really well.
Yeah, I mean, we're Supreme boys. I mean, I used to grow up. I don't do that anymore, but like I used to be really heavy into streetwear and fashion. I mean, I still am kind of, but not as heavy. But I mean, I used to, when I was younger, have I'd have like a team of kids lining up at Supreme, getting all the new stuff ready, doing all that. So, I've always like learned and followed more of like the New York and the fashion industry, and kind of how to do like drops, and we do limited stuff. Like we never want to run the same things twice. Like we do one color, one drop, one time. Maybe we'll do a restock. If we only release like 40 of that one mat, then maybe we'll do like a restock the second time. But like the second time is actually the real drop. The first time was just like a teaser. And then the same thing with like our prints. We just want to keep things like limited and like fun. It's like, if I want to use it and put it on my desk, it's something that I want other people to put on their desk and use. Hopefully we're trying to get into toys and things soon, because I love toys. I mean, I collect so many toys, it's ridiculous. So I want to get into making my own toys here in the future.
Yeah, you've really seen like guys like Elbow see a lot of success like outside of the glass world by leveraging toys.
I mean, I've got a whole bunch of GZ and Elbow toys and stuff laying around. So, they're definitely really have branched out. I mean, I'm a collector of just like figurines and toys and things like that, as well as hash. So, I see that in the hash world, people love collecting, figurines and things like that as well.
So I want to ask, beyond what we've already touched on, the California market and the global cannabis or North American cannabis market is in a tough spot right now, and struggling from many different pressures. What advice do you have for makers operating or brands operating in the traditional space, and in how to either weather the storm or bolster their brand during these trying times? Like what advice would you have for those people?
Well, if you're a new brand just coming into the space, that's going to be a hard time. Just period, point, end, because all of us are having a hard time already, unless, I'm not saying don't. I want to encourage everyone. If you have a good product, your small batch, maybe you don't even grow yourself. You know how to make, you have your craft dialed in, and you have a really good friend who has his craft dialed in, and you guys have some really good product. There's always going to be room for it. I love finding people who have fire hash. I'll buy it all just to smoke for myself. So like those people I think are always be around. I don't think if you make good quality hash, that's all you really need to do. I know like if you're trying to make bulk lots of big competing with these huge companies, like I don't compete with these big huge companies like West Coast and all these bigger brands. Like if you're trying to compete with those people, well, that's hard. You need to that's rough. You need to have multiple farms dialed in, multiple flavors, multiple people. I stepped back and said I'd rather do smaller amounts, dial in my flavors, and it's the same tips I'd give to anyone: is just take a step back, dial in your flavors, things that you like. Do not grow what everyone else is growing right now. I know everyone's going to say that, but that's kind of the problem right now. Is everyone is growing the same stuff because it's easy, and we're just getting cuts from other people, and no one wants to pheno hunt. Pheno hunt, find new flavors, because that is the ticket in right now. Like if you're a new person or a person who's struggling, find new flavors, find something new. Do not grow rainbow belts. Don't grow Skittles. I mean, because Skittles is fire and it'll sell, but everyone's Skittles sells. It's the Skittles, If you want to actually start making like a name for yourself and doing something, find a flavor that's amazing and good, and that you can call yourself, or that's just more unique, and that you can start branding around and producing that. It's hard to make a brand right now with everyone else's flavors. It's just not going to happen in my eyes and opinion. Even we're moving towards a lot more different flavors and pheno hunting, just because we notice like a lot of the same flavors are on the market.
Do you feel that we're heading towards a time where cuts start to be held a little bit tighter than they maybe have in the last five years, where the cuts have been freely moving for quite some time? And I think that you hit the nail on the head that and Addison's been talking about it. Genetics is what's going to be important to differentiate yourself. And so I think that that's going to slowly close the doors on sharing, because that's really what defines the maker and the brand going forward.
I think it's going to go back to the old days. Hopefully. Right now, it's not. Right now, you want to cut any cut you want. That's rare or exotic. You can get it for a price, or for a trade, or for this. It's available. You can't, like name a cut there. It's out there. It's like, you can get it, even the honey bananas, if you talk to the, right person, and get the right stuff, but some people also pop like elemental seeds and get other phenos and not have the same cut of it. But, I think people are going to start going back to keeping their cuts back in the day. Like if you wanted to cut a Skittles back in the day, good luck. Like even Poochie's papaya, the original Poochie's from Poochie himself, that cut was not available for many years, and it was kept, to a select few. And until the flood of releasing that cut came out, now everyone's got papaya. So I think it's going to transition back to a phase where once somebody finds a really good winner, they're going to keep it, because if not, they're just going to flood the market and create the same problem that happens. They're going to have to find another new winner, because everybody has that flavor that they just won and they have released.
Yeah, no, I think those things kind of trend up too. They come and go, because like Jameson was saying, everyone had wedding cake, anything that dumped, like the GMO, everything got out and it gets traded. But there are certain things, and that's I think also too you're seeing hash breeders catch up with the amount of hash makers, and the fact that solventless is going crazy in the last 2-3 years. Now there are breeders that are breeding for solventless hash production, and they're using progenitors that prove well, to bring those sort of Alices to the table. And that's like that's what's happening too. So there are more genetics and there's more strains. Like I've seen in this last year, I've seen fucking
A lot of people are
eight strains I've never heard of
never
before,
seen.
and you're like, oh,
that's one thing. I'm starting to see lots of new things that are coming out because people are catching on. They're keeping it low key and secret, which they should. And they're starting to find. Like we're doing cheeses. Like a lot of people have been posting like the cheese is going to be the new thing, and like we have posts from like last year that we already started planting lots of cheeses and pheno hunting because I love cheese and Kong from All Greens. That's like one of my favorite hashes. So, we have like the cheese Skittles, the, UK cheese, cheese and like oranges, just a whole bunch of different cheeses to see if we can, find a good cheese. But yeah, you're right. The new strains and people developing stuff, it's like, I think the flood of the market is forcing people to do that now again. But I always tell people, don't judge a strain either by the strain. Judge it by the maker and the quality. Just because it says Rainbow Belts or Skittles or like the belts market is flooded, but judge the belts by the maker because like there's a lot of different things out there right now, or a lot of different like strawberry banana, for example. People are like, oh, I don't want it, but like judge it by it because you might get a strawberry banana that might blow your socks off, and you're like, damn, I need 10 of these, or taste like a milkshake inside of a strawberry. So it's like just because the strain's played out doesn't mean it's not amazing fire and someone has a really good version of it and they did it really well. It just means a lot of other people did it really not so well. So it's like I don't judge by the strain. I will buy it and I will open it, I will smoke it, I will dab it, and then I'll judge it. I won't say anything's played out until I smoke it because I will never say GMO is played out. I will smoke GMO to the end of my life. It's one of my favorite strains. If I want to get knocked off my socks, smell just skunk, just GMO onion cookie, GMO does it. And nothing else can replace GMO for me for that terpene profile. But bad GMOs, yeah, they suck. Pull too early, they don't get you high, and they're kind of like mild flavored.
So to that note, how do you feel about naming your pheno or naming what's coming out of your garden or what came out of your room, your washroom, to identify that as different? Like there's so much in the market now that you could be confident that coming to market with strawberry banana versus coming to market with some more unique name is you're probably going to have more effect. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean there fits times for that, right? So like I wanted to name the belt something different, because it was really honestly something, in my opinion. We've released 2 different belts, and the people who have smoked my belts, they can, probably weigh in their opinion. But the other 2 belts we've had were good, but they weren't this belts. This belts was just a lot more Skittles and Sprite and lemon and Kush and just more, and could have called it Dirty Sprite or Sprites and lemons and stuff, and gave it a different profile. But I wanted to let people know, like, this is Belt 3.0, even though it's flooded and you don't want it, you're going to like it, and then they did. So I think there's times, but like strawberry banana, we have pheno, like we've gotten another pheno of strawberry banana, and that's what we call it in strawberry jamba, because strawberry banana is kind of like a really strain that is hard to kind of put out these days. Now everybody wants it. It's funny, but like everyone always asks us for the strawberry jamba, which I tell them, I always tell people it's just strawberry banana, but we call it strawberry jamba because strawberry jamba is a great name. I'll take some strawberry jamba, but it really tasted like a strawberry jamba from Jamba Juice. So I think name changes whoever created the strain created the name based off what they thought it tasted. So they just made a name. And if you make it into hash and it tastes completely different, I think you kind of have the right to also change the name. But you also should tell the people what it came from. If they ask you, I'll disclose it on the bottom, or
we should
things
always give credit. Give credit to the original breeder.
Always. But there are certain strains, like there's a lot of people who have taken strains, gotten phenos, and then created a name from that pheno, because like that's what it most expresses. Like if I dab something and it tastes like limoncello, but it's like sherbet, I'm going to call it limoncello and say it's from sherbet, but I'm not going to call it sherbet if it tastes like limoncello. It's like, it's misleading to the person, and no one's going to want to you are not going to want to even open it and try it if you're not getting that that experience of the name. So I think names have a fit for everything. Yeah, you can't go too hard and just be renaming things to try to trick people and do all that kind of stuff and try to sell your product. Don't do that. But names do fit for if you're trying to find a certain if you're trying to express a unique terpene in your jar, then a certain flavor might express that well.
Yeah.
Versus just saying it's belts.
If you pop 90 micron from Bloom and you're trying to put it into a market and it's a strawberry profile, I think you might want to name it something more like what it would be experienced as than the name it was given by the breeder.
I've renamed Bloom Seed Co. before and even tagged them in the thing and told it was a strawberry guava something, and we just called it guava papaya, because the name, whatever the name had, just didn't really fit, and it tasted more. It had no strawberry taste, and I didn't want to put strawberry in the name because it would be misleading to the person dabbing it. But we still tagged him like strawberry guava, blah blah blah. But this is just guava papaya. So yeah, I do think that there's certain plays in that where it takes place. Yeah, but as you said, it's good to always, tag the breeder or mention them or let them know, give them credit for their hard work.
Yeah, absolutely.
At the end of the day, without their hard work, you won't have hash to make.
Yeah, them and the grower.
Yeah, shout out to them and the grower. Yep.
Unless you're both.
I wanted to ask if there was one lesson that you wished you had learned earlier in your career, either in business or in the hash room, that you could pass on to the listeners who are following in somewhat of a similar footstep.
Have more if you're doing something well and you have a good craft, and have more confidence in yourself, and just don't let other people take advantage of something. Maybe take a little less money, or just work for yourself, or maybe not take the dream picture that someone's giving you at first, and work on yourself and promote yourself first, because sometimes or a lot of the times it doesn't work out the way people are going to say it does. That's first. And then second, I don't know, I guess I wish I would have gone onto hash sooner.
Yeah.
But, yeah, definitely confidence in yourself. I didn't have a lot of confidence in myself in the earlier days in Cali Sifco and things like that. Let a lot of different people take advantage of the things that I could do. So working for myself and putting confidence in myself was definitely the biggest step. Getting out of my comfort zone. Getting out of your comfort zone is the biggest thing. If you're trying to make hash and stuff, dude, get in a car, drive 10, 12 hours to a farm, meet some farmers, do something you wouldn't do. I was living in LA, it's not something I would normally do. Now I drive a truck and go to farms and stuff, go to the farmer's market and, have cows and, but yeah, get out of your comfort zone. Definitely would be the biggest thing for hash, because that's the only way you're going to find these awesome, strains or cool opportunities, or, even I find new strains all the time by finding a new grower that just growing in his backyard, just, has no Instagram, no nothing, just the dude who loves the plants, and it's just some old guy and has amazing weed and strain, and we talk and hit it off. We meet at the gas station, we talk about trucks and then weed and plants, and bam, this guy's got some orangutan, weed that's just amazing. You're like, damn, I can't wait to try this out and grow it, So definitely get out of your comfort zone, as I say.
That's awesome, man.
Travel,
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, to travel, get up north, if you want to find good hash and stuff like that, LA is the place, always will be. LA is the scene for everything. I mean, I come to LA for all my work, but come up north, sometimes go to the beach, go kayaking, go see some farms, go check out some other hash that's not hype, or anything, and, more experience.
How long till the industry rebounds, Jay?
Man, we've been talking about that with a lot of people. I think we haven't hit the bottom yet. So we need to do that first in order, for it to happen. Like like someone was saying in posting, if you have a good brand and you work on making sure that your product is first, and and you're not worried about the money, you're not chasing the bag, and you're worried about just putting quality product, and customer service is really good. Like I talk to everyone, all the people. I love talking to people about anime, hash, weed, video games, whatever. Um, I think those things are helping, but there needs to be, I think, like a real bad dip before things are going to really get better. And I think education, a lot of the new consumer base that's coming into the market to buy hash, maybe would have been people who smoke BHO, or like, they're not as educated in the solventless market as all of us have been for the last 8 plus 10 years. They're just getting into it. So they're not educated. They don't know what they're buying, what good, like if you've never had a Wagyu steak, how do you know what Wagyu tastes like? So it's like that. They don't know what upper echelon of hashes even taste like or can be. Like we have hash pairing dinners that we've done and things like that. So I think more visibility and more education is what it's going to take for the hash market to really like refine itself. And then it's going to have its tiers. It's always going to have. You're always going to have your Budweiser. You're always going to have your Heinekens. You're always going to have your crafts. There's always going to be a place for everyone, and everyone's going to shine in those certain places. And no one should ever dog on any of it. I used to smoke the lower grade hash when I couldn't afford it, and I moved up to the mid top and the high end. So everyone has something for themselves. But I think it's going to take a lot of education. Shops aren't educating at the moment like they used to in the 2015 days.
Yeah,
they're not telling the consumer, this is what this is solventless, this is that, like there's none of that going on. It's just you walk in, here's an iPad, what do you want by? So
I think it has to be done differently, and I think it goes through events like Legends of Hash and other solventless events that create awareness around the culture in the space and the unique culture that is solventless.
The amount of work that people put in, and stuff.
And so
like
I think sorry, go ahead.
No, I was saying there's like cheap stuff and there's good stuff, and like there's just not visibility for the newer people to see the differences, like the like craft wine and stuff.
Mm-hmm. And showing the individuals that understand and appreciate those nuanced differences is just as important as explaining them, because that's how all these wine documentaries, the Somm documentaries and things like that, that's explaining the differences and then showing the individuals that actually care and showing them like experiencing these different wines. And
it's not for everyone. Some people don't want to experience a 12 taste coursing meal of different things from around the world. Some people just want their steak, and that's it. And that's fine. Like I appreciate both of those, but we're more about the experience of the different things and the different flavors like that. And I think that's going to be coming, back around too. People are going to start being, educating more. Like 710 Labs has been doing more education in their pop-ups. We have Hash Legends. We just had the Puff. The PuffCon thing was pretty good. It was pretty cool, but wasn't you weren't able to educate or smoke or anything like that. So in high times, well, that is definitely the wrong way of educating. So it's like the opposite of what you want in the cannabis industry, in my opinion, of how you want to educate. It's just pushing bad product onto people. So I think just more education, promotional videos, as solventless gets bigger. But I think dispensaries really need to be the ones that are being more educational and stop acting more like just like come in, get what you want. And back in the old days, when you walk into a dispensary, they asked you want solventless, do you want BHO, what do you like? Now it's more about like the brand and this and the that, not really about what the product is.
Yeah, I think it's up to the manufacturers to incorporate that educational stuff into the marketing, and it's smart when they do, but it's really on them, because the more that they do it, the more that they open their eyes to the consumer. Because like for us to take a second, people need to take a second and stop and realize that there are people that have never hit a fucking slurper. They have no idea what a slurper set is, or the difference between a cap and a marble on a slurper set. Like they have no fucking idea.
No.
We take it for granted because we're in this.
We've been doing this for too long. Yeah.
Yeah, we're in this bubble and we're like, oh, oh well, I would never fucking smoke melt through a fucking slurper. And like, all this shit. People are like, well, why not? And you're like, you silly son of a bitch, because it's gonna cool down.
You
There's so
uncivilized.
many intricacies to it. And but what
You
I'm talking
savage.
about is that's what Legends is. Legends is that end of the spectrum of like fucking banger baskets and like, dude, I was yesterday days old when I learned how to actually use a banger basket, because I thought that it was like, oh, you have your small side and that's where you throw all your little shit, and the big side is where the big shit goes. And I'm
Oh
like,
yeah, your baby done.
it's like, no, you put your pearls and shit in the small side, and you dunk and clean in the small side, and then you put your. And I was like, I don't fucking know that. I was just so it's like there's so many deep things that you understand from, fucking sucking on a fucking.
There's
surfer.
educating from how to smoke to what you're smoking. Like a lot of that education just kind of got lost because all of us know it. My market already knows, like I don't have to educate my market. I still sometimes do a little bit of re-education. I do the fresh press things and the cold cure things and like the flavors, but like I want to do classes again, but more educational, where we educate people on flavors, pairings with like if you eat a blueberry and take a dab of honey banana, oh my God, it's like the best thing you've ever, like certain foods and dabs really make the experiences amazing. A lot of people just don't know also how to dab certain, like I get asked all the time, what temperature do you dab Skittles at? Well, like depends on who, but you need to dab it at lower temperatures. So I think a lot of education on smoking as well as what you're smoking just in the future needs to happen forward. Like there's just too many new people coming into the space who haven't been around, who haven't gone to high times, and who haven't been at sashes, who haven't got yelled at their friend for chazzing the banger 10 times,
I think that
so you just gave me an idea, and so I think we should start doing this, Jameson. We should start asking makers what temperature they hit different strains at. So then that could be like a normal question, and then people could be like, oh well.
See, but everyone has to have the same fucking temp tech. I use that, I used it one of the ones I got at Hash Legends last time, which
Dude, Mikey was just showing us that crazy shit. Mikey's showing me this handheld. What's up? Mikey shows me this handheld that has a video on it.
It's the thermal gun, the FLIR.
The thermal. It's like a thermal camera that you just put.
It's an actual FLIR, military grade thermal camera.
It shows the temperature of different things in the video, so it'll show.
That's what we need to do. Everyone needs to have a FLIR. And then, but yeah, but having the same, because like I don't use the dab rights and the temp techs and all those. Like, not to be against them, it's just everyone's is different. That one has been the most consistent overall. Like I have like 10 of those, and whenever I travel somewhere, just buy a new one, just because like
this is nice too. The new
every single one I use is the same. I can set it to 600 degrees or 610 for where I want it to be, so it gives me enough time to like rush over to my dab. I need time, and then I hit it at like 500. But all of them are the same, where my dabs, my temp tags, all my other ones that I've had, every single person's house is like they all have like a puzzle, like how you use it, how you hit it, going too hot, going too cold, and it's just I couldn't get over it. Now I just bring mine.
There's like a very steep educational learning curve that's there, but I don't know if it's the right point of attack for us to start at the bottom with education. Like if we look at the rise of anything that, grew up during our lifetimes, snowboarding, for example, like snowboarding didn't get cool putting out educational videos on how to turn right, on your toe side and your heel side. Snowboarding got cool because a bunch of dudes were launching themselves off shit and making it look crazy cool. And they weren't explaining how they did it. And to most of us, it looked impossible. So I tend to lean on the farther side where I'm like, let's show the absolute extreme of this. Like, and that's where I commend Legends and things like that, and people go, oh, well, it's not inclusive. And, oh, well, not everything in life, the Olympics are not inclusive.
No.
So it's like, I feel as though if you show the ultimate high level of it, individuals will see it that absolutely don't comprehend it. And a small percentage of those individuals will start their long journey of figuring it out. And the low-hanging fruit of being like, this is a banger and this is a carb cap, I think is going to get snapped up by these MSOs and, you know, be able to be put into easily digestible pieces. But it's really like the culture that we showcase and document that won't be able to be replicated by those MSOs, that we can kind of be like, thanks, we're going to take it from here. Like you get the consumer in their early infancy. You get them developing, and a lot of consumers will stop and they'll just be happy with what they're consuming at that point.
Yeah.
And, some of them will move on.
Most won't.
And at that point, that's when the transition happens.
Yeah, we need to just, you know, expose more. I mean, our culture isn't really shown to the newer people. Like when you tell somebody the cost of some of, you know, like, you know, the rigs that we saw at that table, you know, you tell a person who just dabbed or someone who's even been dabbing for a minute, the prices, they're just like, what? Are you out of your mind? A house, you know, like,
well, show them a timer, show them anything. I mean, look at the, like, not to fuck with anybody, but
even the alcohol and everything.
Bangers out there, bro. Like I see people posting videos, and I'm like,
can't do black bangers.
It's healthy to hit that rig. Never mind, and that's just normal for some people. You know, they're hitting dark material, and they're in the middle of fucking nowhere. Or, I mean, I even see like some of the TikTok shit that stays up that people will repost that you see. It's like,
oh man, what I see on Reddit.
Oh, bro, it's
man,
crazy.
what I see on Reddit.
Or just, you know, for example, go on Amazon and put in like, you know, quartz nail set, and it's like slurpers, and it's all this knockoff shit, and it's like $20. And then you're looking at it and you're like, wow, that artist developed that nail, and he sells them for, you know, they sell them, the real ones sell for $700, you know, but here's this, you know, but the point is that
they don't know
a lot more. They know a lot more, but they don't know what that is. Like, I don't, you know, it's like, it takes a minute for that. So we're kind of at this weird point where we have so much exposure to so many different things, but that's kind of, I think what people need to understand is like Legends is like a spoonful of all that stuff at once, because it's, you know, like we're telling everyone this year, like, hey, just bring your rig, because there's a sponsor for torches, and there's a sponsor for the ISO baskets, and there's a sponsor for this. So there's all these things that are going to be there that are, you know, part of the experience.
I brought two last year, one for melt and one for rosin. Mm-hmm. You know, I was like specific. I was all like, this one's for melt, this one's for rosin, this is what I'm doing. You know,
I mean, that's kind of what like things have come to, I think, too, is it's because there's so much equipment involved. There is all these ancillary products to help, you know, simplify the process.
How you were saying, more videography needs to be done. You know, like, you know, there's not a lot. Like I've been wanting to hire someone, you know, with like really good camera to come out and do like a really nice video of like the wash process. You know, like I've done videos myself, but they're not like high quality, like you would see on YouTube, high 4K, you know, like pulling freeze dryers out with amazing diamonds just zoomed in, you know, like we really haven't had anything like that. I know 710 and like Papa and Berkeley have done some stuff, but nothing on the level that like I would envision, you know, like some Kanye West level shit, but with like hash, like show like people paddling, and then like the freeze dryers, the press, the washing. I think there just needs to, and then, you know, and then also the like the sessions as well, like Hash Legends, and even like the private sessions. Like I don't think anyone takes like GoPros and like records and really builds videos, and like everyone kind of keeps it
it's
private.
The only way we're going to keep it going, especially in this culture. Like if we think that you can continue being like, oh, well, the real cool thing is just you can't show anything. It's like, if you can't show anything, it's going to die.
I mean, I love showing things. I mean, I have to be private because I get deleted all the time. You know, it sucks. But it's like, yeah. I love showing, you know, like my hash. So I can't show my process anymore, because whenever I put a process up of my video, like I put one up like last week of, you know, we were pulling one of the biggest yields ever. It filled like 3 trays on the first pull. I was like blown up, and it got deleted instantly. So it's just like, you know, I just can't post a lot of things on my Instagram that I would want to, because they instantly just get deleted. I have to start like a website.
If the cannabis industry was treated like any other industry on Instagram,
oh my God, we could
feel like you would see like you would be able to chart it financially if we would be able to, you know, communicate. But there will be a platform, and there will be a new solution one day. But right now,
yeah, that's what I'm always hesitant on the videography because, like, I always want to take videos of the grow and every process, but at the same time, we're also in a traditional market, so that is also kind of not good to have all the videos of all that stuff. But it's like, but we're in this middle market where people want to see all the process of everything.
Yeah, it's gonna be cool. It's gonna be cool to have cameras at Legends this year. I think that there's
nice.
A lot of footage that can be released kind of to give
because last year we didn't do any footage, right?
Year.
Yeah,
this is the first year ever.
My phone was locked away.
Yeah, in the past there's been like journalists that have been invited that have gotten to come and then write about it, but I think those stories that are written have been given approval by Legends, so they've kind of made sure that they didn't have certain things in them. So now this will be the first year that people will be able to pull their phone out and actually post online and put that stuff out. So
that is good.
It's going to be very interesting.
I think it'll bring a lot of attention to people, like the hash. Like, I was able to I went home and took a video of every single thing afterwards, but this will give people like an on-site time to post and take videos and more document, dabbing. And, I think I'm going to start, like you said, I think I'm going to start posting videos on like how to dab and, and what temperatures and, using the little light box with with a little camera setup, trying to get a little camera set up so I could do a little bit more educational on, like what I'm dabbing, what temps I'm dabbing, and like, if you're using a slurper, you got to hit it slower. If you're hitting a cone, if you're using a charmer with the cone and the ball, you got to hit it slower, and then there's people who like to hit it harder and faster. And I say, then the slurper is better for you because it cools down quicker. So you get your big bang and then it's done. But if you're like a slower puller, then, you go for the charmer. That's where you're going to like it better.
And that's like the deep dive into the culture. And I think like between, Legends opening up for cameras this year and like just the positive reinforcement that like even just documenting melting of the heads and putting that out and all the positive feedback we got from that and the proliferation of hash events like across the country, even up here in Canada, we're seeing them. I think that it's going to breed a community and a culture of competition and hopefully healthy competition. And I think that if we all meet a lot more, it'll breed maybe a little bit more of a healthy competition than unhealthy.
No, there's been some like recently there's definitely been more unhealthy competition in the cannabis space. I don't like talking about it, but there has definitely been like a negative. Like I always think there's good positive competition. It's like there's never like I'm never competitive. I don't think I'm the best or better, and I don't think anyone's the best or better. I just want people to make good stuff, and it motivates people when they smoke something really good to go home like, I'm going to make something really good. I like that kind of competition, but there has been some newer competition in the market that's kind of more like downing others. And I don't like that when other people are downing anyone, especially in our space. If they're trying hard to make some product, like help him, give him some tips or something, but downing him is not going to help him or anyone else around.
The hash community should be like the gym. If somebody's in there, you shouldn't.
Yeah, if they got little weak arms, they should say you can. I can still wash.
Yeah, they're on their journey. You got to let them.
Yeah.
Can't really fuck with them.
What, Jay? Overall, like, your impression of Legends, the first Legends that you attended, like, what were your takeaways? Like, how did you think of the event? What did you enjoy? And
I need to bring this year I need to bring a hash press so I could like flag hash out, I think, because like that's one mistake is not having, I had parchment, but I needed something. I wasn't, flagging hash out just gets you better, easier dabs because you're not like trying to scoop them out and stuff. So flagging my dabs out for full melt, learning that, because it's hard to like, and you can see the clarity of the full melt and the particulates too and everything when you flatten it out, with a little heat press and you can put a light to it. You can really get a better review on like it instead of hitting it in the banger and seeing how much residual is left and stuff. You're already going to see how good it is there. So I think
you have more time now to judge, and you get to take your kit home, and then you come back the next day. So you have the next morning to kind of like fuck around.
Nice.
And
Yeah,
do
yeah.
that
So
shit.
I think, pressing out the melt, you know, and having more time, because I definitely did not have enough time to smoke all my dabs. I got like, at the end, I was rushing through to like try to finish. I was so high already because I need a
there
little
was no
break.
judging before. So before there was no judging. So it was like there really wasn't a time limit. It was just like try everything, see what you like.
Yeah, try. And then, as it ran out. Yeah. So I was just like, I was just sitting there, I was just high. I was just sitting there. I didn't, you know, I was too high. So I didn't, I didn't go get things correctly because I was just stoned sitting down, you know, like trying to get through my entries.
Too.
Yeah,
that totally works too. It's like it is an open hash bar, so I think people are going to respond differently to it. Some people, you know, that are raised a certain way will react a certain way.
No, I think people should be. I mean, hopefully people are respectful. You know, I think most people are, but you know, like
I think that's what's great about the fact that you're creating a guest list. So, you know, that one friend that you have that's a little too crazy, you're definitely going to be like, all right, well, you know,
chill, buddy.
Yeah, you know, it's like,
so are we doing judging this year?
Yeah, so from last year, a lot.
So I've been so busy with like all these events back and forth that I haven't really caught up on. Like I've caught up on everything, but it's been in my mind and then slept past it. So
yeah, a lot of the feedback we got was like, you know, just different things like lighting and, you know, more time to, you know, to be with the hash, but then also to judge. Like, hey, we want to judge each other. We want to give each other, you know, sort of our rating on what this stuff is, and we want to see the heat come, and we want to be able to judge it. We want to have winners in each category. We want to have split categories. So now we've addressed all that stuff. We've added judging. There's 3 different categories.
Yeah, I remember telling me. Now I'm remembering everything, and that's smart. That probably would have been all the advice and tips I would have said. Would have been, you know, like maybe have like 2 separate categories at least minimum, and then lighting, because it was really dark. You know, we were like, I was using my light a lot to make sure I could see the hash properly because I really wanted to see the hash. But lighting, I think, but and times. I mean, I think you honestly addressed any of the things I would have said. You know, the gift bags are amazing. You know, like
I think,
they
you know,
came with,
we listened. So,
you know, like everything in the gift bag was like the most, you know, the banger. I mean, I used everything in the bag. It was a very, you know, it was something that someone thought like, oh, someone's going to use all these products, and, you know, and they're all, you know, they were all useful. So that was great.
Yeah, no, we try to curate, and the same thing for this year, but we've tried to improve on that as well. So it's like, you know, bigger sponsors, curating exactly what's going into the gift bags for each of the different attendees, and then also figuring out, like, you know, the awards. We don't want it just to be like, oh, here's your fucking trophy, and then start putting out these standard ass trophies that everyone has. It's like, it's just, I think that it's better to have. Now we have social media. Someone's going to post that they won. There's going to be a post that you can go back to with a logo to see that they won.
You should get like Bubba's face to make some daggers or something for the winners.
So well, that's what we've done is we've
or something like that.
We've taken the sponsors, and we're having sponsors put up products in this part of their sponsorship. So now if you win first place, it's a gift basket with products from all the different companies that are, you know, that are customized for first place. You know, you can have that ISO thing on the table. You know, if it's, you know, Deppy's making awards for every single one. So
that's awesome.
These like chalices that he makes, and, you know, so
that's cool. That's going to be cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So banger basket. There's a Terp Suve for every first place. There's just these really cool baskets for each one. Toro just secured their sponsorship, so they're doing a bunch of slurpers. So it's
that's going to be cool.
We're building it up that way, and we're not doing it to try to be different. We're just doing it because this is what's necessary to feed these 250 hash minds. You know, there's 250 people in the room that know exactly what the fuck's going on in the industry. They love fucking hash. They're all about it. They want to see some dry sift. They want to see some different shit. And it's kind of like this top end of that consumer end of the market for hash, because there are also a lot of people that have, you know, disposable income. They're in the industry. They're doing these type of things, and they're at this level. And that's like, you know, whether it's these big glass, there's, you know, huge glass in the room. There's a bunch of, you know, not just glass collectors, but then also there's a whole bunch of, you know, different makers that are going to be in the room. So they're from the same industry. And then, you know, equipment companies, all the way into you know, component that you can think of, but on that consumption high end level of that, you know, it's because that's the other thing, is that it's the most hash anyone's ever been fucking exposed to, and it's a guest list that's selected. So it's not, you know, we just sold 25 tickets for the first time ever. 25 people that we selected, you know, they requested, and we got to kind of take a look and see. For the first time ever, someone's been able to buy a ticket to Legends. So that was kind of the first. But we wanted to also make sure behind the scenes that we were like, okay, let's look at this person's social media. Let's see, you know, does this person fucking get down? Because if you're in that room and you don't get down, it's probably not going to be a great experience. You're going to be like, what the fuck are these drug addicts doing? Like, you know, you're not going to understand that it's like, yeah, there's guys that hit fucking, they don't have a slurper. They have fucking 3 slurpers, and they rotate those bitches, and they have 3 sets, and like, that's what this is. And, you know, there's $100,000 piece of glass on every fucking flat.
You gotta have a dry slurper ready for your, you know, for their next dab, and a fresh slurper in there, and one for the next, so you can just switch them out.
Oh, and then, or you've got the, you know, the Lot Comedy, you know, ISO Barbarette fucking thing.
Oh yeah, lots. Yep.
It's just there's a lot of that's going to be there, because we've also catered to that, bringing in, you know, Lot and different artists and putting all this stuff together so that it's, you know, but then also what do those consumers like other than really good hash? They like great food. So let's get a really amazing fucking brunch caterer with prime rib. Let's bring in a sick ass bakery. Let's bring in a barista that can make all the coffee drink. Like, let's do it in a way that it's also like, it's opulent, but it's an experience. It's a getaway from, you know, some of these other events and some of these other things, but you'll get to experience it. So it's not just a maker only, you know, kind of event. It does have that component to it, and the makers are the only judges. None of the other attendees are judging. They're going to we want them to go there and enjoy the hash. And then the other thing that we don't talk about a bunch is that, you know, every entry that the maker puts in, their name and their company name and the strain is on the bottom of that jar. It's not a number. It's done in a way so that it could be promoted in the room, because this whole thing is really about, you know, it's being honored, you know, honoring the makers and then giving them a platform to promote for the rest of the year. You know, just because you got selected to compete in Legends is enough. You didn't even have to win to use it in marketing. The fact that you got selected and that's your entry that went into Legends, so it sets another bar, you know, and I hope that it kind of shows other competitions and stuff. You should be doing the same thing. You should give these guys more bang for their buck for putting in the entry, for doing it, so that they have something they can market for the rest of the year until they go back or until they possibly get invited again. So we just try to add as much value to the attendee, to the maker, to the sponsor. You know,
yeah, if you're a new maker or a small maker, it's definitely very beneficial to get your, you know, your branding and your name, you know, out there in any way possible, especially where the people are going to buy your or consume your product, you know, that community. And usually find that community are at, you know, certain events, you know, certain private events and things like that, where you're not really going to find them you're not going to find them winning a high times, you know.
No, that's, you know, you need this to win high times, as everyone knows. But and then look at too in the past for places like for Ego and other stuff like that, you had completely, you know, Splash and Helios and guys who, like, a lot of people didn't know who they were, came out of nowhere and won. And then now it's like, you know, of course we look at that and we're like, oh, we want to fucking definitely invite these guys to come in.
I mean, they definitely got, you know, like even me, even though I had already a big established name, winning Ego Clash was like even more people wanted to get stuff, or even brought new people who have never met me into it. And being smaller and winning an event that's heady, you know, in my opinion, it's like, I don't think winning events really matters at all. If you have fire hash, you have fire hash. It doesn't matter if you win or lose. But if you're a smaller person who has not really been out there, or who hasn't really been branding that much or hanging out, you know, like, I think I know someone who's going to bring some really fire, who hasn't been very well known, you know, who just might take the cake, you know.
There's going to be fucking.
He's got some fire.
40 makers.
40 you know, I think, you know, and these are people that, you know, winning an event, you know, would like, a lot of people who don't know them would be able to see and recognize and be like, damn, I want to try out that fire, that shit. You know, it's the stuff
the
that
idea of it
I
too.
smoke, you know.
Yeah, we were talking about it. Like if you're an out of state person and you saw that post for the 25 tickets and you bought a ticket to the brunch, you're gonna get to go to brunch and there's an open hash bar with 60 strains, 60 entries from 40 makers, and you just filling your pockets and enjoying. Like that's fucking galactic, dude. That's like whole other experience for people. And I think that's it. We're stoked to be able to put that in there and let that kind of go down this year. But again, we had to make sure that they weren't like, fucking rubber bong on the table in their post. And it's like, all right, hey, as much as I really want you to be there, you would fucking die within 18 minutes and we'd be, you wouldn't
be a good experience for you.
Yeah.
And we would be wasting like a space for someone who could have a better experience,
Yeah. And it's the other thing I love about it is that you were just touching on it. Like a brand new person can come in, and if it's judged by the makers, they're still going to give them flowers. They don't give a fuck. It's like, this is the best one. So this dude won. We don't know who he is, but this motherfucker won. And I love that part about that end of the hash community, because it's all about like very honest, very transparent. And that's why we put the judging on the blockchain for this one. So we've created a judging platform that's on the blockchain. It's 100% transparent. It's I hope it changes the way people do judging, because everyone who gets to go to this thing and wants to buy into who won should be able to see how they won. They should be able to go in and go, oh, okay, this is, yeah. Oh, so-and-so voted this and that and that and that. Because that judging also gives you an understanding of that maker and what they like. And that's all part of the data, like part of what's going on there. So I think
something that won might not even be something that someone else considers the best, like I thought something else that didn't win, actually 2 or 3 things that didn't win at Legends, I thought was like, this should win. This is number one.
Yeah.
Like, I would never, but it's like you get to see an insight.
Yeah.
And it's also good because a lot of people get to, see or meet each other, after being on Instagram and maybe kind of building up a persona or a mind of how they are in real life. And it's like, a lot of us are just really nice hash nerds. Like there's nerds and then there's just hash nerds. A lot of us just are nice. We'll want to talk about hash. Doesn't matter who you are. You want to talk about microns or terps. We will sit down and man, I will get you high and we will talk about hash, So it's like, it's a good experience. A lot of people get to like, meet people and like, and put a face to the name and a personality to the name and share some experiences of hash.
Yeah, it's going to be it's a bigger space. It's indoor, outdoor. It's got a lot, it really focuses on a great place to sit and make your space to sit at and to dab at. Just like, when you go to a sesh, sometimes we've all been to those sessions, and you get there and it's like, fuck, am I going to break my rig out and put it on this card table and then have these dudes all leaning on it? This fucking,
this could be a pile of glass. Or is this staying in the case,
dude. And it's like, we wanted to make sure that like every table is super sturdy and every, there's security there. There's all these things there that we want to make sure that we paid attention to. So that, and we're looking forward to
even if anyone is expecting to bring some super heady rigs, you could always, I'd advise just getting some extra large dab mats, like the cork fat pad, mat. So if a rig does fall over, it just falls over on that pad and it won't ever break, and they're cheap. Some cork, I would advise people to bring, I would tell people to bring fat, long, big corks just in case, because at events and when you're getting this high, elbows, this, that, anything can knock a rig over.
Helping the heads, we had like $2 million of glass on the table, and like we made it work. So and
never mind, if anything broke, Deppy could have fixed it right there.
Yeah.
That's the other thing.
Whenever I'm around that much glass, I'm just like I'm always just like nervous for like me and everyone. I'm like,
I've never seen it. I've never been somewhere and someone like broke a fucking a heady or something. I've just never seen that before.
I've seen quite a few very expensive non-replaceable pieces broken. I've seen other expensive, won't say rigs dropped as well, but not broken, but saved. So I think I've experienced it, and I've had people explode dosas and drop mothership Ferraris, around me, and so I'm just like that. It's been ingrained in my head, I'm like, yeah.
It just makes me sad even thinking about it.
But no, most people that we've been around, they take care of their glass so well. You know, they have so much expensive glass. Like when I see them just walking around sometimes with this glass, you know, I'm just like, wow, you know, like that's crazy.
The only
Yeah,
time
you see-
the only time I'm ever worried is when I see alcohol at a sesh. As long as there's no alcohol there, I'm pretty
I
like
think
I'm not,
it's good. The alcohol scene hasn't really like been around too much in our sessions these days. You know
No, it
that.
doesn't suit so well. I think it's more like, you know, I think if people want alcohol, well, just think about it. The two don't mix really well. Like,
And I think
when
the
the
other
fuck do
thing
you
that
see
was popular also left the building. So I think I think hash has kind of
smoking
been,
weed and alcohol?
you know,
Okay, you
you
see
drank
those
it,
two,
you know.
but you get someone drunk and give them a dab, it's fucking lights out. Like, it's
yeah.
not.
No, it is.
That's
We're
it.
spinning. You're throwing up. It's not a fun.
No,
Like
they're
even me,
fucking done.
I'm tolerant. I can smoke grams. You
They
give me
think you
some
drugged
shots
them.
or
You know,
some
they think
beers, and you
something else
take me a
happened.
dab, I'll be gone. I'll be throwing up, spinning. Not a good time. I don't like
Yeah, so I think
alcohol and that.
you know, it's more, it's so hash centric. It's so just like
Yeah.
fucking hash on top of hash.
You need to be healthy to smoke the amounts of hash that we're about to smoke. Like drink lots of water,
You gotta
eat
warm
good
up, yeah.
food, you know, like that. That's the kind of things you need to do when you're smoking this amounts of hash, because your body is going to start going into shutdown and sending signals to your brain that you're dying. And you have to tell your brain, I'm not dying. I can take
might
5
die.
more of these, you know.
Yeah, you might die. If you do die, it's
You won't
downtown
die.
LA. Well, it's
You know.
downtown LA, so we'll just throw you under the highway or something.
You'll
You'll be good.
It's okay. The first cannabis-related death. No.
No, there was one in Massachusetts recently from some packaging. Some guy was packaging joints or something, and he fucking died.
I was saying, not to smoking. I don't
Not
think
funny.
you could
I'm
even,
not laughing about his death.
I don't think you could even inject cannabis and like enough would give you an overdose. You would just your body would just shut down and fall asleep before enough of it did any harm.
Yeah, well, I
You
think
just eat some ice cream and go to bed.
I had a few edibles this week, some jelly wizards, and taken a few dabs, and I couldn't remember how I fell asleep last night. You know, I woke up like, oh, I was still on the couch, like didn't even make it to the bed. Yeah. Damn.
I've been there myself.
Yeah, my dogs loved it. They were like, he slept with us tonight.
Yeah, Gary came to visit the other day from Colorado, and we were hanging out, and I was like, he's like, do you have any edibles? And I'm like, I do actually. And I had all these Chiba Chews and Green Hornets. And there was all these like flavors that he hadn't seen before. So we're like opening these packs of Green Hornets, and then before I know it, I'm like, did we just come out of milligrams each? Like, and we're like, yeah, I think we did. Dude, we were going to go to breakfast the next day. I think I woke up at like 9 a.m., which is the latest I've slept in like 5 years. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, I call him. I'm like, dude, I'll see you at 11 o'clock.
See you at 11.
It was like, yeah, it wasn't. But it's nice. It's a warm kind of escape. You know?
I don't know how to not go easy on edibles. Like, I always eat like the whole thing. So I'll take like 150, 200, 300 plus milligrams. And then later on be like, why am I so sleepy? I'm like, well, because you couldn't just eat
2 days of my life.
It prevents smoking, in my opinion. Edibles will cut down on the amount of hash you want to smoke. And so,
edibles will cut down on the amount of everything.
on the amount of everything, amount of life. Life just kind of seizes when you
everything. Just eat a bunch of edibles.
Do some edibles. Yeah, I don't think I've ever smoked so many more hash donuts. That's one thing. That's gonna be the new thing. I have never consumed that much hash because you can't consume that kind of much, and I can't dab fucking an ounce of hash in a sitting. You can smoke an ounce of hash and donuts. Like, you will sit there with like a few people. There'll be 1 or 2 donuts lit, and then by the time one goes out, another one goes up. It goes out. Another. There's never not a donut not lit. So there's always a half gram to a gram being smoked every like 10, 20 minutes. So you go through those donuts, and the tolerance, man. I've never seen so many people high in my life than seeing like people smoke 20 donuts just back to back to back to back. Everyone was just floating. They weren't walking. Everyone was just hovering around. Everyone was just.
Yeah, I have a rule in public where if someone passes me something or if I'm going to smoke something, I won't hit what they're giving me, and unless they give me a new one and I can smoke it myself. But if I'm in my house and I'm with someone and we're passing something, I'm fine with that. But like, just I don't know, like the outside with everyone. I'm like, I don't know if any
we
of
were
you guys
lucky.
watched
It
the
was
fucking dance. Like, I don't know.
it was a group of personal people, so it wasn't like it was like a group of like 15 friends that were all there to roll donuts, you know, and like smoke.
Just
so
to
it's
get
like
super lit.
yeah. So you're
Like a
not
personal
sharing,
sesh.
you're not passing with anyone, you know. And then like everyone's got the new, like I call it, like the Roger text. I saw like Roger doing it once, but just like taking it and putting it, like, you know, with your mouth, and then like having it go up in the air with like the joint, you can actually get a really nice seal. And because I don't like hitting after other people's joints, I'm pretty picky. Like I'll be like, roll me my own.
Yeah, that's like lot shit, you know, when kids would like chill them their hands and like put
Yeah,
the
like that. I was doing that,
like, hit it like
dude.
that.
That thing works. That works honestly just as good, if not even better, than hitting the joint. If you get some good suction going, you know.
What works even better is a dab, which is crazy.
Your hands.
Those are fucking awesome. Like,
I mean,
yeah, at Legends, there's no smoking flower inside of the building.
that's good. I mean, that's good. I mean, I would never allow smoking inside of a building unless I had just the best ventilation ever, because every single event ever been to that allows blunts and people smoking in the inside, I usually try to leave early. I can't breathe.
It's
just
too much, dude.
I don't even dab.
So we have an outside area. There's an outside area that you can go and smoke flower and have a good time and do whatever.
That's where
inside, just for dabs. So
yeah, the donuts have ruined my tolerance. I'm kind of like stuck to smoking those like every now and then now, because they just get you. So like they get me as high, if not even higher than a dab. I never thought I'd say that, but you know, and I don't really smoke flower.
You know, same stuff's in it. You're
but if
you're fucking combusting it instead of
at a way higher temperature.
Also don't smoke a half gram at once. So a half gram in a joint is definitely a lot more.
No. Like, you have to understand, anything you smoke, half of it gets smoked when you stop hitting it. So you put a gram in, only a half a gram is going to be possible for anyone who's smoking.
Still a lot of fucking hash. I don't take that in a dab. That's like a whole day's worth of dabs.
You take more in
a gram.
You're taking one. Like the math is this: every gram of cannabis has 150 milligrams of THC on average. Every gram of rosin has like 800 to 900 milligrams on average. When you put the two together and you put it in a joint, you have to cut the milligrams in half immediately, and then you cut it in half by every single person that's passing it to the next person. So smoking joints is a real shitty way of getting high, actually, because a single dab can be 60 milligrams in a hit in one fucking dab.
No. Is it efficient? No. But will it get you really stoned? Yes. There's something about the combination of flour.
Yes.
Because I don't really smoke flour.
Yes.
There's something about the combination of flour and I wasn't really a donut person up until just this recently, until getting good donuts. And now I'm like a well done donut, you know, like Dan's Rose Up and a few other people. There's a whole bunch that make really good donuts, smaller people. They're amazing. Like they get me just as high as a dab. Not all at once. Like a dab isn't gonna hit me just all at once, but I'll take a dab and then I'll continue the high experience with the donut. It's not like one or the other. It's like you're doing this and you're doing these. You know, I don't replace. I'll never replace dabbing. I dab I can't smoke too many joints anyways, but to continue the high of your dab, it's perfect. It's like you don't go down. You just like take a dab, light one of those, and then move on with your day.
Yeah, and then you were just many ways to skin those cats for sure.
Yeah.
Have you thought about? Oh, go ahead.
I like traveling with portable rigs and stuff, but they just don't really do it for me. Like I really like the quartz nail. Like if I'm gonna take a dab, it really has to be on a quartz nail. I feel like I'm wasting the dab if it's not like a quartz nail. Yeah. With a heated and a banger. It's a good experience. It gets the job done, but it's not the same. Mm-hmm. If I can go to my car and light up my rig, I will.
There's so many different ways to do it, but I think when it does come down to it, they serve their purpose. If you're in transit or doing something different, one of them will work. And
well, if you're a flower smoker, like a lot of the people I know are flower smokers and not really hash smokers, but they'll smoke hash in the donuts. But they won't.
The other thing, it's like you can't do everything everywhere. Like if you're in the bathroom on the airplane, you can't take a dab, so you have to hit the Carta. Like you have no choice. You got to hit the, you know. I mean, I'd love to like take an actual dab. If someone does a video in the fucking bathroom at the.
What do you mean you've never seen? Oh, what's his name? Oh my
Like,
God!
I think
everyone
Travis
remembers
Dutra done
him.
it. Matt Guido.
No. It's another guy. He used to go to Japan and do it with the elbow glass rigs. He used to blow it in the taxis. He did it on the airplanes. I can't remember. He did it on United.
Fucking,
you know what I'm talking about? He did it on United Airlines. He's the one that got all of us in trouble.
He did it in the restaurant too. It's Otis stabs.
Otis straight up hit a bong. Like I don't even know. It was like a mothership or something. And it was a dyno. It was a dyno in the airplane in the little bathroom. Fucking torched it up and hit it and everything.
I do remember now.
That is an FAA.
I'm talking like breaking out a fucking, you know, a full set in the bathroom and just setting it up for like YouTube video status and just.
No, that is. I don't think anybody wants to risk
until they kick you out.
Dude, that's not even a kick you out. That's you're gonna land. They're going to arrest you and you're going to jail.
No, the only thing that's illegal is to tamper with the.
You're telling me taking it? They're not going to arrest you for taking a dab in the.
Like if you're on a PJ, we haven't seen that yet, where somebody just like is on a private jet.
Oh yeah, the jet suites.
Yeah. Well, I think the reason that you don't see it on the PJ is because, and someone told me this because I had mentioned it to someone who has a PJ that travels on it and does dab, and he was like, the problem is this: that video is evidence that would then reflect on the pilot.
And get in trouble.
And the pilot can lose his license because
because he allowed it.
Whatever. Yes. Or even if it happens, he's liable for it. So that's why they're like, look, if you want to, don't videotape it. Definitely don't post it. And it's like, you know, but there's also a thing too about if you don't own the jet, then the jet has to get cleaned and they have to flush the entire air system in the jet. And it costs like it costs more to do that than it does to fucking rent the jet. So
dude, like some GMO.
It's like 30 grand for a private flight. But if you do this, I've heard it's like $45,000 to fucking clean the plane correctly, and they'll charge you that fee. So most people don't fuck around, you know. They're like, and the people that would do it, it's usually like the record company's jet and this shit, and that's less, you know, like less nowadays too. But yeah,
I just get really high before the plane. You just get super stoned.
I hit shit in the bathroom. I hit fucking dude. I'll take 3 of those fucking 710 pods. And just put 3 of them in my mouth like a harmonica.
Tape them together, you know, and just make like an ultra pod or some shit, you know.
Triple blinker in the bathroom, and then you hold it until you fucking have an aneurysm and fall over. Like, dude, I every time I fly with my girlfriend, I come back to the seat and she's like, "You smell like pot." Like,
oh my god. I've done it in the airport bathrooms. That, you know, that's that's it. You know, the travel. That's it. I've done it there with my little freaking vaporizer, but that's the only place I've done it is the bathroom and in the airport, not the airplane.
I've done it in the airplane, but not like a full dab, not like a like a torch. I feel like if you bring a torch,
I can never get a torch. I mean, you can't get a torch past us. You can get a torch past security, but it can't have any butane in it.
You think like if you took some like nice strawberry terps and then you on a rented PJ and you blew it through like, you know, one of those like
smoke buddies.
Yeah, whatever.
I think you could get away with strawberry or like honey banana or like one of those fruity or strains where it smells like, because my mom smokes a little bit of cannabis. And when she smelled like the honey bananas, you know, strain, she was like, oh my god, it smells like food or like, you know, artificial cologne or something. So I think you can get away with it with like certain artificial strains that really smell like fruit.
I'm gonna work hard until I can smoke dabs while I fly, and I'm just gonna keep working. I'll either die or I'll smoke dabs while I fly and then be happy. But like that every time I fly, I sit down and like I just want to bust my rig out, and I'd be like, I don't care how long this flight is. I got my phone, I got my rig, I got some dabs.
Dude, wouldn't that be dope just to be able to bust it out? Like even if it was just a vaporizer, not like an actual like glass, you know, if they let you just pull one of your like preferred vapes out.
That's Carters are for airplanes.
You know, like
it should be legal.
airplanes and cars.
Yeah, but I mean, like vape pens aren't legal, so it's like until
Well, it's like just hold your baby's nose when the fucking
hold your baby's nose. What I wish this ain't the '60s anymore. We can't just smoke cigarettes on the airplane anymore,
It's a little baby.
you know, and drink babies. We should just have planes with no babies, right?
We should be able to argue. We should be able to take footage of old plane flights with cigarettes being smoked and be like, if you allowed this then, we should be able to do this now.
We should be able to smoke cannabis. I mean, hey, when Biden makes this federal legal, if he ever does, if the old guy doesn't die, you know, before that happens, that'd be amazing. You know, maybe some things will start to change when cannabis actually becomes federally, declassified as a Schedule 1.
Dude, I've met and hung out with insane.
You'll have your first smokers. 420 hotbox airline. You know, once it becomes declassified, it'll be like, oh shit, I'll host it. I'll bring the hash for free. Just fly me places.
Yeah, I don't have any hopes for that guy because I know hash smokers that have more cognitive understanding than fucking Biden ever will.
Just cognitive resources than he does.
Like, dude, that guy is. Did you see him fall on the bike and all that shit? You're like, bro.
I still think they're just keeping him alive. He goes at home at night like a Tesla and they plug him in, you know?
It's like Weekend at Bernie's over there is what the fuck it is.
Yeah. They're just keeping him going, you know?
Oh my God. And you ever hear him? He's like, you fucking whippersnappers. Like,
yeah, I love him so. I mean, I miss George Bush, man. He was crazy,
yeah,
but
Trump was so entertaining and so.
You know, at least George Bush was sending monkeys to Mars.
Insanity.
You know, he liked weed. He sent monkeys to Mars. You know, George Bush was good for cannabis.
Yeah, his dad not so much, but you know.
His dad's a dick.
George Bush was very bad for cannabis. Actually, he was like raiding dispensaries when fucking cannabis was legal in medical states. That dude was.
He's trying to make his money.
Oh fuck! That guy was never mind. He's a CIA baby. Fucking. Oh man, there's like I fell into this rabbit hole on these crazy podcasts, and one of them was about this the connection between the CIA and the Bush family, and all of this crazy shit, and it starts with like the Bay of Pigs, and Kennedy, and how Kennedy like pulled the ground forces from the CIA invasion of like the Bay of Pigs. And there was supposed to be this like preemptive strike that happened on the ground, but they didn't have that. So then a bunch of agents got killed. So then there was a flip, and this is like real shit. There was like a flip inside of the intelligence community where they were like, fuck this president, fuck these people. And that's when Kennedy got assassinated because they pulled, like, there's all this crazy shit that connects it. And I was just like thinking to myself, I'm like, these corrupt motherfuckers and all this shit that they've done. And this, like, all we're asking for is you to govern us and fucking make sure the money goes in the right place. And you can't even do that. You're over here murdering each other. Like, oh, bro, it's deep, man. That's why I just smoke hash and fucking, you know, I don't get involved. I mean, I vote. That's the other thing. I vote so I can.
No, I vote because I try to, you know, make sure I get things that are good and beneficial for me, and, you know, I pay my taxes. But
you can only have so much of it in your head.
You know, being up in, you know, Humboldt, it's definitely been, as they say, a humbling experience because I'm a little bit more away from society. You know, we get our food fresh and our vegetables fresh, and we don't really have to deal with like the, you know, patriarchy of like the government system as much up here, you know, like harassment of, you know, officers or anything like that. We're kind of like everyone's in their own world and bubble up here where I live.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
no one fucks with each other.
Consolidating too. So it's got that consolidation that's kind of happening where some people are leaving and there's not as many new people coming. So it's kind of getting even more sort of like
not a lot of new people where I live. Like I was one of like the newest, you know, like it took me a while to get accepted where I'm at because I was kind of like one of the newer hash makers to move up here. And I kind of came from LA, you know, so I wasn't, you know, I was kind of seen like an LA boy at first. They didn't really notice that I was here to do the work. I was here to wash and make hash. They thought I was just some LA kid, you know, but no. And now you know, most people are like, you still in Humboldt? I was like, I'm a Humboldt person now. I love it up here.
Yeah. Like it's my home.
Clean air,
it's my home.
Good living, cheap. It's a lot cheaper than LA is.
That's awesome, man. So other than the rosin carts, are you working on any new projects for the coming year?
I mean, well, we have the rosin. Well, we have the seeds. The seeds are dropping. The seeds are dropping. The feminized seeds are dropping. The rosin.
Am I correct? Am I correct in saying it wasn't just the S1s? There was also a cross. There's
like four. There's going to be 4 crosses dropping.
Which ones are those?
1 second.
Take your dab. No problem.
Cheers.
Cheers, brother.
Little Alia Labs by Zito. Made Zito by Alia Labs. So high. Is that backwards? It's really good. They've been putting out some really good rec stuff recently. I try to pick up all the rec stuff, and I get gifted it, or I'll buy it myself and support just market research, see what's going on the rec market.
Absolutely.
Most of the time it doesn't please me, but Alien Labs is definitely killing it with some of their shit right now. Oh. So we have the seed drop coming. Yeah, it's the S1 Honey Banana. But we also have Honey Banana Belts, Honey Banana Papaya, and this is our belts and our papaya, the ones that that we think that are the best versions of them. Honey Banana Trop Cherry, Honey Banana Gelinade, and Honey Banana Taliman.
Nice.
Yeah, so Trop Cherry, Taliman, papaya, belts, and yeah, those are the ones. That plus the S1. So it'll be 5 different 4 different crosses and 1, S1 dropping here soon.
Anything in the work with your friend Locke?
Oh yeah.
Nice.
So we're gonna have new merch dropping. Like we've been teasing. We did a little small drop previously of like our purple hoodie, or like purple hoodies with a little embroidery, but we're going to have the hoodies dropping, clothing. Winter's coming. Stuff for like washing as well, like waterproof. Carhartt stuff for washing. And of course, he's got a new print that he's been posting that you can't start washing hash all day if you don't start in the morning. But yeah, we have a few merchandise and really just focusing on flavors this year. Like we have the pods, we have the seeds, which are the 2 focuses, and just new strains. Like I am growing a lot of like my staples that I always love. Always going to grow the honey, the papaya, some GMO, rainbow belts, a little bit, Skittles, a lot of, because I just love it. And we dialed it in this time, so we can actually mass produce Skittles both in clones and in grow and in wash, which wasn't really something we could do in hash before. So getting that down was good. So just doing more new genetics. I think we're focusing on really finding new things. Like we're excited for the cheeses, excited for these crosses that we have, because I love the honey, and I think I'll never get rid of that. But searching for new things. I think that's really the focus on this year, because like there's not many new products. I mean, we're going to do an edible. That's like the one last thing I have not done. And then it's just because whenever I do something, I want it to be executed perfectly. And I'm really picky on choosing everything. So I want the packaging, the box, the edible. And like we kind of have ideas for how we want everything to come together. We just need to execute it and get an edible out. I think by the end of the year, we should have like a proper edible. So I have the edible, the pod, and continue with our hash. We'll probably slim it down, be more small batch, and just have because we're gonna pheno hunt and do flavors. So that means that we have to sacrifice having more batches, because things won't yield as well.
Are you working with specific breeders or your own stock, or what are you doing there as far as your pheno hunts go?
No, I mean we have our own stock, and I did my project with my partner, so he does breeding, and he's been teaching me how to do breeding. I'm not a breeder, Masonic made a joke. He's like, you got to put breeder in your hashtag. Not there yet, but it was a project, and we did it together. So, we're starting to, chuck pollen, get some things. We have our own things going, but we're starting to like backlog, and, go through like, like EQ genetics, that's the stuff like that Royal Key used to have when I used to work for them. Like these like really good landrace strains, like, cherry pies, sours. But I think trying to go back to what made all these crosses and things themselves. And I think the original strains, see if we can get them. Like we had a, what was it? It was like this really nice orange. It was like some African haze, but it was all red Congolese, the red Congolese. And oh man, it washed pretty well. And it was such a unique, like, it said it was a haze, but there was no haze whatsoever. And it was like one of the most unique profiles. And I think like Dr. Ladybug has done it as well. I've seen him do it, but yeah, the red Congolese. So like trying to go back and do some like, some old school strains and find some new things, like CSI Humboldt, and they have some really cool crosses like BX1s and Skittles and Kushes, trying to find some gases and OGs, because that's what people want. People want OG and gas. They just don't wash, and they don't translate, but we are trying our hardest. We have some like OG KB right now that's coming. That's ridiculous. It just smells like like some of the most like a pie and OG. And then some sours that we're trying to get going. But I think the Kush and the gas, like the original Kush and gas, not this new stuff, runts and all that. That's what people, I think, kind of want in hash, because we have fruits and there's a lot of that around, but there's not this like staple, like good, like we have Legend OG that we're testing out and stuff, because we really want OG. We want sour. I want to be able to open up a jar and just be like, I want to smoke OG right now and sour. And that's not something I see available in the rosin market, like at all. Like you can't really buy or smoke that flavor daily. It's not, that's a treat if you get some of those hashes.
For sure. I think like, there's definitely guys on the East Coast that have been holding that sour, and, that sour hasn't gone anywhere. But I think like on the West Coast, I mean, shout out to our good friend T Beazle. Like all of his early wins in the Emerald Cup were with sour.
I know Mr. T Beazle very well.
Yeah. So sour been making its rounds, like, and I know like a lot of East Coast cats get real bent out of shape when Cali guys are like, oh, we're leaning into this, we're bringing back the sour, because like, you
gotta know how to wash it too. She's a greasy strain, it's not like, it's not a novice strain, it's not GMO and cookies and cream. It's not going to just do its thing. You have to make sure, like you focus on extracting it well, because that thing is a bag greaser. You will ruin some bags, not get your yield. You not have a fun day. Gorilla Glue and Sour D are just like, you're having a really good day or a really shitty day, depending on how you set up your wash.
Yeah, man, it takes all kinds, but yeah, it's awesome to hear that you're diving into the flavors. I think like we touched on earlier, like it's genetics, and having unique flavors to offer the people, and also having the control of growing the plant, seeing the plant grow, and then being able to harvest the plant properly and wash it, I think is super special. So
yeah, like we still collab. Like we, like I don't want to name some of the people, but like we collab with people, some big farmers, and like we, but we do most of our material, like, but we're able to be selective now. Instead of making our full menu like collabs, our full menu is our single source, and then we can collab with what we want from other people, with things that are good, things that fit our menu, and then we're able to represent them, give them collabs and stuff like names, and help each other's brand. So we still collab, but yeah, and it's nice having all three, like having the farm that I'm able to have, with my partner, being able to do the outdoor, the indoor, and the light depth really gets us like a cool insight to all the resin, we microscope and get to see the difference in everything. So I like offering all three, and we honestly don't ever put on the jar if it's outdoor, indoor, or if it's like that. We just, if it's the best of it's in the jar and you're getting it,
Interesting. That's it. I like that take. I mean, a lot of people try and be more transparent, but if it's like, hey, this is the best of the best,
I think it's misleading to say, because people think when people hear my rosin's outdoor, sometimes I'll get DMs like, "Yo, someone told me your rosin, this batch was from outdoor," and I was like, "Well, some of the stuff you did was outdoor. Like, there's no way this is outdoor." And I was like, "Outdoor resin is amazing. It can be just as good as indoor." Honestly, I've had more bad indoor resin than I've had outdoor, because if you don't flush and you don't do it well, you don't do your rooms, you don't have a nice setup, you don't have control, humidity, all that. I mean, your resin's going to come out. There's a lot more flexibility outside, sun, soil, feed, boom, make some good hash, So, but that's why I don't like putting it, because I think without the education, it's not, putting outdoor sun grown, or putting light depth, or greenhouse, or putting indoor, doesn't make sense unless I just want to put the best quality in there, and then the person gets to judge it. It's like, and no one ever can tell me the difference too, if it's an indoor or an outdoor or a light depth. I can't tell the difference. So
absolutely.
I mean, I can tell the difference on texture. That's the one thing. Once you start working with the product a lot, I can, when you're whipping it, I can tell the texture of each consistency. I can tell you where it came from. But other than that, most people can't tell you, the difference.
What is it? Is the outdoor grainier than the indoor, and then the sun grown or the light depth in the middle?
No, that's strain dependent on graininess, and also just on how somebody whips, if they're not whipping their stuff, and just strain. Just really, that's all strain dependent. Because the outdoor honey banana is not granular; it's very like taffy, and indoor honey banana is. So there's multiple variables that play into me knowing, like when I look at cold cure, especially like more taffy cold cure and stuff. Like if it's more stringy and more malleable, I know it's more full spec and more outdoor. Where if it's very white and almost like if you get it to the sides, it's like translucent. Like on the dabber, it's like if you put a light to it, it's actually not opaque. It's translucent. It's almost like glass. That's usually like indoor, that indoor makes that really, really white see-through resin, and the cold cure, when you get it just a small amounts of it, the light shines right through and you're like, damn, this is just white, clear. But the outdoor resin doesn't do that as much, even though it has more flavor and it's wetter. When you put the light to the outdoor resin, it doesn't have as much of like a sea, it's more opaque. It's more, it's like deeper, and it's like,
it doesn't transmit the light through to the neck. Yeah, I know exactly.
It's not as crystallized. I think the indoor has higher THC and less terpenes. That's why it's not as wet sometimes, and it just has a really good crystal structure. Like you'll see sometimes like little crystal chunks, in some of the batches we've just done recently. There's like fat crystal chunks growing in the cold cure, and you really have to homogenize and break those crystal chunks down.
Mm-hmm. Man, super interesting stuff. Jay, I appreciate you taking the time, man. I appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, you guys. Thanks for having me. It's, like I said, my first podcast, my first time talking to some people. So I appreciate it.
After this, you're going to have people reaching out, because you're full of knowledge, and you definitely, articulate yourself well about resin and the plant. And that's,
I love hash, man. There's just nothing more to it than, like, at the end of the day, that's all I want to do is make really good hash and smoke really good hash,
Where is the best place for people to find you, Jay?
I mean, there's different places. There's Kush Clinic in LA, that's one of like the main spots you kind of can like easily access. But then I have a few reps down in LA that if you come onto my Instagram, I have my reps posted on there, and they're all very friendly people that are good, reputable and easy to work with. But as like a delivery service kind of thing, the only people is kind of like Kush Clinic. And then for private people, I have like 4 to 5 reps down in SoCal. They can be able to purchase the product from.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you guys, and you guys have a hashy day.
Absolutely, bro. And we'll see you at
Thank you, brother.
I can't wait, man. It's going to be a fun time.
Absolutely, man. Cheers, everyone. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
I will. See you guys.